Well, hello, hello, hello. We're live at 263B's Saturday Beach at. Don't have anybody here yet, but I'll tell you what, I welcome each and every one of you. I appreciate each and every one of you. Catch us in the replay. Hopefully, things will be better. We're sitting here right now. I started a few minutes early, about a minute and a half early. So we'll see who comes in. I'll be glad to see each and every one of y'all. So, man, I'm chiming off already. All right, all right. There's two waiting. All right. I mean, I don't see them in here in the chat. Let me refresh this chat. All right, guys. All right, who we got with us already? Got one in here. Hey, Tim. What's up? I've been mulling over some information that we've been talking about, and I think I've sort of found a key element that didn't even think about because it's so simple. So I mean, something I pulled up in my looking around. Anyway, trying to get the link up there, brother. I have the link pinned, Tim, in the stream. Actually, I don't even see you there. I don't know what the heck's going on. As far as that goes, I'm gonna like myself tonight. All right. We'll see. I'm gonna let you see too. Also, so we're gonna see what you how your trials go and what you're working on. See which one's better. But there's also another key factor. Well, I think you might have part of that, but it'd be better if you use a different out of the. I don't show anybody on my stream. What the heck? I see you. I know you're there. As I've been mulling through trying to figure out what in the world, we're gonna do. Being that I'm starting to jump up to not skirt. I just want to send them to the trees. All right. Probably you're scarfing down your food. Hey, Tracy. Yeah. Tim. I figured you're eating dinner right about now. Even though it's been a nice day today, those girls have been tested. They keep coming out there after me. Probably so mad at me because I messed with them when I was collecting them swarms. Hello, Carl. Or Carol, excuse me. How's everybody doing today? So, Tracy, you chasing down any swarms lately? I've had my hands a little full this weekend. Well, actually Friday. Come home from work, found me a basketball in my tree. Talking about putting a trap out. What do you usually use to tell how it tore me up? Yeah. I was asking Tracy, what do you use to bait your hive with usually? Yes, Tim, I will. It was overcast bad when I come home from work yesterday, and the girls were up in the swarmed out of one of my. I'm thinking they swarmed out of one of my hives. Pretty sure that's what it was. I found 12 cells in one of the hives. I think it came out of. So I had to end up with 2 splits today because of that. But I was out there. I didn't have a ladder, so I grabbed a folding chair when I run out to the yard. And they weren't that far in the tree. I can grab them in and shake it. And when I shook it, they come down. I think there was a little too much in my leg, pants in my legs, my ankles. Uh, as they came down, I went to go hop down. When I did, I don't know how many went up my pants, but they got up all around my nether regions and my and my biscuits and tore me up pretty good. They didn't hit anywhere else really. I mean, I wore my veil and coat, but they went up them pants legs, and that was it. They got my legs, my butt, and other parts. But that for a swarm, I've never had a swarm that aggressive. So it it actually surprised me that they were like that. So I mean, it is what it is. So I mean, that's why I'm talking about. You never know what you're gonna get. I think I got a few in my hands because I was scooping them. I was scooping them up, and they wasn't liking, I guess, the pressure I had on them. So I mean that may have encouraged some of the stinging that I got though too. Thinking about that, they were releasing that stress pheromone, which caused them to come after me a little bit. So I mean, so that's what we're looking at. Yeah, and a big percentage of it, Tim, I think, was weather, um, because of the fact that the barometric pressure. They were, the barometric pressure was dropping, the clouds were rolling in. There wasn't too much time before I got lit up, and I had to hurry up and get them out of the tree because the weather was coming in. Yeah, I see Frank is here. Yeah, Frank, I'm at 2 swarms and 4 splits. So I have a total of 16 hives at the moment. Hey, Keith. Welcome to the Saturday Bee Chat. There is a link at the top. Well, I think there's a link up there. No, I got to re-add it again. It looks like. Give me a minute. I'm going to add a link. Anybody who wants to join is welcome to join, chat with me for a while. Help me carry this on because sometimes it's harder to do this chat to the chat box. The chat to the chat box gets a little bit tough. So what are some of you other guys up to as far as splits and or swarm traps? Hey, Lee. I'm sorry to hear that, Lee. Back bothering you. Probably played too many games with that grandson. Trying to pick him up when he had a strained back to begin with. That's probably what happened. There was a time I was playing with my grandson, and I was picking him up, tossing him in the air. I blew a bicep tendon in my right arm. He's midair, about 10 foot from the couch. So I palmed him up. When he started coming down, I couldn't catch him. So I palmed him all the way over to the couch. He thought that was a game and wanted me to do it again. I couldn't. I told him, buddy, I can't even lift my arm. I felt bad telling him that when he thought he had some good fun with Papa. And here we got Frank backstage. Got the camera up his nose today, too, it looked like. Oh, there we go. So what you up to, Frank?
Oh, getting ready for I got bees coming on Thursday in packages to replace some of my losses and try and get back to normal.
Well, what kind of losses did you have this year?
I had 10 little clusters, I guess, that I lost. I was trying little small clusters that had gotten down to like a handful, and then eventually they just go on. So I don't remember how big they were. They might have been 1 or 2, maybe 3, 4 frames, of bees before winter started, but they dwindled down over the winter and eventually disappeared. And I was talking to your buddy William Harry. Oh man, the guy that gives you the bees, Harrison.
Oh, you're talking that's Harrison, and that's
Dave.
for that's Dave. DC.
Yeah. I was watching his videos, and he was saying basically his philosophy is to stay at least 8 frames, nothing less than that. And I'm like, well, I'm still trying these small clusters. There's got to be a way to, like he was doing like a greenhouse. He tried a couple nukes in a greenhouse, and that didn't work. And I'm like, there's got to be a way to get little small clusters through. There's got to be like stacking them. I don't know, something.
Well, you still there? Did you drop? Okay, what happened? Oh, there we go. I can bring it back. I got you back.
Yeah, like pick up where you left off when you went into winter, and rather than have to like, oh, you're not to the standard and just cut losses. I was wondering, there's got to be a way to bring the small stuff through.
Yeah. Did you try any like any double screen bottom boards? on them?
I I did when I was going through winter. There's a couple colonies that you just got down to like a handful, and I'd inspect them in the winter, and I'm like, oh shoot. So what I did is I actually combined like three different colonies into one big pile, like you would do like shaking a package, and I put them above a double screen board. Um, but the thing is, they're all not the same colony, so they might have fought each other out too. And it's winter, so you don't really have the chance to like looking at everything they do. But
Well,
there
I
was
was
quite a
thinking,
bit of dead.
I was thinking maybe if they were down to, like 4 frames, you put them in the nucleus hives and stack them on above each other with a double screen board. That may make them help them make it through. You know,
Yep.
I mean, I'm taking a stab at it because I don't have the winter or cold weather you guys have got.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, this year was actually warm most of the winter. I probably could have ran around in shorts and flip flops for most of it. So I
Yeah,
mean,
the
it's
other
not
thing
that
is,
bad.
reducing the colony size. You pack them in there and reduce them down to one box. And I tried that for everybody, so that they're not, lots of extra space. I did several ways. I did some with insulation on the outside, 2-inch thick. I did some without insulation. I did some treating with oxalic acid before I went into winter. Others I didn't. And between the 16 different setups, nothing really stood out except for two hives that did pretty good, which actually three did pretty good. One that had Apis biologics, that's one of four. I had one of four that had a heated cover on the or heated bottom board, and I had one that had a power supply that controls a um, uh, ion generator in the top. So that might have created a bit of a little heat just from the transformer. But those three actually came through pretty strong. Um, so I've got five that came through, but three of them were pretty strong. So, but it's
Um,
nothing really is like the same. I would think every heated hive should be the same ratio, and I think every one that was insulated should be the same. And I would say, hey, this is definitely better than the rest of the ideas. But nothing was like, hey, this is the best idea. They're all kind of the same. So
do you know? Do you know what the well, you can't actually say it's truly a Carnolian or Italian. Do you know what the dominant breed of those bees was?
when I got them, they were from Georgia, so they were like the Italian, is what they were. You're told.
Yeah,
Um, so that's their, I guess, traits. So they're supposed to be the ones that brood up a lot, and they're supposed to be the ones that really go greedy on the honey, and um, they don't get it out as early as the Russians. So they hang out a little bit longer inside before they get out. So they wait till it's like 50. So that's the typical traits.
yeah. Like say like a Carnolia. As you said, they were small. I was thinking maybe they had a Carnolian or a breed that would brood down during the winter, small, and then start coming back. That's what
That's
I
a
was thinking.
possibility. Maybe they have that because the brood is definitely down to I don't know, like small as your hand brood pattern.
Because I think some people said the Carnolians cut it down and ride through the winter pretty small. Uh, but I was trying to think. What kind of feed did you do for them?
I was doing sugar straight, though I had a group of five that I did the oxalic acid. I'm not oxalic acid, the Apis biologics. in the sugar water, and I fed them in the fall after I pretty much took all of their resources. So they're pretty much all of them were fed just sugar. They did have like remnants of honey, but anything that was like a full frame or most of a frame of honey was all gone. So they just had like ones that had little strips on the sides or something like that. You know, like the arches of honey, they'd have like the on one frame they'd have little corners and stuff like that. But that's about all they had that was real honey.
Uh,
So, so the other question is maybe their nutrition was hit hard and they just couldn't do it. Now they did have quite a bit of pollen in there. You know,
they're
they had frames of that.
they're gonna need the carbohydrates for not the proteins, but the carbohydrates to create the heat. What the issue is with that, I think it sounds like, because the protein they're gonna use for brooding, the brood mainly. You know, they use it for food, but I'm sure they use most of it for their brood if they're having brood. So maybe it was starvation or not enough resources for them to maintain.
Yeah, that's what I was
Which
thinking when I went in there and saw them shrinking down. That maybe that's what was going on. Because I do know the tree hive that I had, which was like it's like a nuke, but it's standing straight up and down, three sections. They were pretty much cleaned out. There's nothing in there, and then what was left was all dead on the bottom. So they definitely starved out, and so that may have been what I just maybe didn't get enough food on them right from the beginning of winter, and then when I caught them, they were so small that they just couldn't get back. Because when I started seeing they were shrinking, some of them, I went in there and started putting granulated sugar mixed with a little water to make it like a slush, and I just coated the whole tops of the frames right where the clusters were. I'd go in there and actually pack out the frames that were empty with sugar and then put them back in there, so that they had sugar all around every place that was empty. Cells I'd fill with sugar. So
yeah, I mean, I think I saw a picture of one of those that you had of one of the of that stuff. It looked all over the top. Looked like snow on the top. Is what it looked like.
yep, yep. So then some
So
people say maybe they just dried out. You know, there's just not enough moisture in there. Um, Maybe the sugar doesn't have the same moisture content the honey does. Maybe it does dry out. Maybe they did. But
well, you figure you have a. I think humidity plays a part in brooding and heat as well as heat. So maybe they weren't being as small as they were. They weren't able to control the humidity level in that environment to keep it warm enough with small clusters. Is what it sounds. It has to do. I'm pretty sure it has to do with food. I mean, their availability to food. Were they able to reach it? Were they afraid to leave the queen? You know, were they had to travel too far, leave the queen
they
exposed too long?
when they got really small, they had it all around them, so they were like basically swimming in sugar because I was freaking out. But but before that, you know, yes, I could agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I did a
I
heated inner
haven't.
cover.
Go ahead.
I did a heated inner cover thinking that maybe I can get to the heat dome and heat that up to at least 50 degrees and at least keep that, help them because they're such a small group. They're only the size of your fist, you know, that they can get around the sugar and all. But I'm wondering if maybe my switch that turns it on and off had too much of a cycle. So it would go up and down and up and down. And maybe the elements got a little too hot when they're going up and down or something. Or maybe they dried it out by going up and down. But for some reason, I did two different attempts on that and both failed. So
I mean, I haven't had any dead outs at all. So I mean, I've not gone through that experience as far as that goes. I mean, I've heard of it. I've heard different things, different processes, a lot of different processes of thought on it. You know, I mean, I've had abscons.
Yep.
You know, don't know why they absconded, but you know, I was able to reuse the equipment and keep on rolling because my bees keep chugging along.
Yep.
Got one hive does nothing but throw out slabs of brood, so I had to shuffle them around to keep room in the one hive. You know what I mean?
You think they would have swarmed in the middle of the winter?
Well, no, the ones I had abscon were no, I just kept it low because of the fact that right before winter I'd split out the brood to be like 3 or 4 frames in the hive to keep the numbers down and spread it out between the hives. You know, to keep it at a reasonable rate for for cycling. And then in spring, I have the same problem. I had to spread it out amongst amongst the hives, to thin it out, even out, equalize, and then with the dead outs, not dead outs, but the abscons, they happened just before winter, and they were small anyways. I had one of the abscons was a hive that I split in early spring, about the same time I split this year, but never got over a nucleus and 2 nukes high. And they were just sort of dwindling and staying around. They weren't really doing much. They produced honey, for the season, 1 nucleus of honey, and that was it. And
Do you
they
think they do like
absconded.
they do with? You think they do like they do with swarms, and they just kind of like see other hives and they just drift over and fill up?
And it's a possibility. I mean, uh, I think when I first saw it happen, first saw the ones absconding, I thought it was one of them they were getting ready. I said, "Why late October? Why are you wanting to swarm?" That's what I was thinking. And I said, "Well, I caught a swarm in October, so it's possible that they have a swarm flying off, and I just missed it." And, and later on, I saw them hanging on the tree out front. So I tried to catch them up, put them in the box. It's a small, and it wasn't as big as what I saw the cloud. So I'm thinking some of the bees went into other hives. Because the swarm I caught off the tree, what pulled off the tree was that abscon, and it was like maybe a pound and a half, 2 pounds of bees. Um, so it wasn't really big. So I'm thinking that what didn't go in to a hive stayed with the queen. Is what happened, and then I put them in the box and I kept them there for a couple of days. I was gonna go look at the checkup, and they were gone. They took off finally again. So I don't know, but I went at that same day. I went into the nuke box I'm talking about originally, and they were robbed out completely. There that week apparently. Maybe they got robbed out and it stirred up. That's what caused the abscon. I don't know.
When
I'm
they
just
were robbed out, you
surmising.
got a lot dead.
No, there was like maybe 2 dead bees in the bottom. That was it. So I think what it was,
So
they
where'd the bees
realized
go?
that's what I'm saying. When they absconded, I don't know if they got robbed out and they cleaned up the mess and realized, well, we ain't got no food, so we're gonna leave. It's the only thing I can think of. Because
Or
there was
maybe
only
they
two
just
dead
turned on
bees.
themselves and said, "We're taking everything and going to somebody else's colony. Use it as a
I
bribe
have no.
factor so they can get in."
Yeah, well, yeah. Bring gifts. You can get in the gate if you bribe them, right?
Yeah, it's like, hey, I got food.
And well, and the other one in the back, it just took off. I don't know what happened to it. I went out there. It was small. I noticed it's small. I went and stuck brood into it to try to augment the numbers. And next thing I know, 3/4 of the brood had hatched, and they took off. And what was left, I had brood still in some of the cells. They disappeared.
Oh, they totally gave up on it.
Yeah. When I turned around, we made a split. That was one of the boxes I used for the first splits I did this year. I did a Terranol split. Dumped them all out. Let the ones fly back. And take care of the rest of the brood.
That's a tear it off, you said?
Yeah. It's very similar to a flyback split, I think. We shake everything out, and then what it is, I put it on a board right in front of the a deep box, and I put some of the brood, some of the eggs, and stuff from the main hive, or the hive I'm dumping them out of, into there, and to put some empty frames in. And I shake all the bees out on that board that's hanging right above that box. And what happens is the queen and the nurse bees will walk down into that hive, that hive body, and then the rest that fly will go back. We'll go back to the main hive to take care of the hive and make a new queen.
Okay. So it's almost like a split.
Yeah, it is. It's a full. I mean, it's a double deep. So I had too many bees start off on the spring in there. I popped the top. They were boiling out the top, so I had to do something. And I did it about mid-January. And people say, "Man, you're crazy! You're crazy." They're doing great still.
Wow.
And then I think a week later, I did another double deep that I had because they were too big.
And you're feeding them?
No, I've not fed them at all. They're bringing in nectar, bringing in pollen and nectar already. So I mean, it surprised me. People were thinking I thought I was crazy, but I got 2 full 10 frame boxes worth of bees out of a double deep. Well, 2 double deeps, because I had 2 different setups of double deeps. So I ended up getting a whole nother hive out of one and a hive out of another. And then now I've had to split off another double deep because I found 12 cells in it today. So I split the 12 cells between 2 nucleuses. And then dumped some reserves into there and evened everything out. So I went from 12 to 10, 10 to 12. So I had 12, went to 10, went back to 12. Now I'm at, and then the other day I caught that one swarm, and it was gave me 13, and now I got 2 more splits. That's 15.
Wow.
That's 15. Yeah, that's 15. I was counting 16. I don't see how I came with 16 out of 15, but so my obtainable goal of 20 is probably going to be surpassed this year.
Well, Thursday I should be back to 16.
But you're cheating, man. That's cheating.
It costs you money, yeah. No, I just got tired of trying to play a game of going up and down, up and down. I'm like, you know what? I got to get back here and go from there. So that's what I'm going to try. And hopefully it's not going to go back down and be a waste, because that'll be really psychologically a strike. Spend money and lose it.
Yeah, I think this year I've not messed with them as much this year, because the very first year I only had 2 swarms, and I was worried about them and always messing with them all winter to make sure they made it through the winter. And then last year, the two jumped up, surprised me, and made 12. So I got too many of them. I was like, well, I'll just leave them alone for a couple of days, a week or two, and then go check them. And so I've not been in them as much. And I think that's done a lot better for me because, I had one hive for a while, the very first swarm. I was like, peep in, see what they're doing, I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. And the next day I'm out there, what you guys doing? Yeah. And then, then I got two of them, and it was like I was doing the same thing for two of them. And, they produced, but I was just lucky, I guess. I think the more I
That's
leave
what I
them
did in my
alone.
first one. My first
Yeah,
one, I looked in every couple seconds and during a day, and killed it. Killed the queen somehow. She disappeared.
she
So then the
packed her
first year,
bags and I need another box.
so I had to go buy a queen. It was my first year, my first, package. It's like, dang. And then
Well,
they
if they
died in
keep
the
going,
winter. So
I think with the way they produce brood. I may stand a chance of being able to make some queens this year.
yeah, I'm watching. I think it's David Burns or something was telling me. You can do probably two packages off of it and some honey if you want to do in 1 year. It's depending on the strength. It's possible, but usually one split and honey is possible, depending on your numbers. I'm thinking, yeah, I remember when I got my packages last time, I had fully drawn frames, and I was able to more than double. So I believe that, and I did get a little bit of honey, but
What he's saying is a low end, I think, depending on where.
yep,
Then it depends on where you're at.
yep,
All right, now that's the low end because I had two hives, got 12 out of them. Total of 12. So that's 10. That's 5 per hive. I got 5 splits out of each hive, and still had 4 production hives last year and made 400 pounds of honey.
man. So that's the high end.
Either that or just blessed because I didn't know what I was doing. I
So if it
still don't
happens
know what I'm doing.
consistently, I guess then yeah, you're totally blessed.
Well, either that or I just dumb luck, blessed or dumb luck. I stumbled on to doing it and figured out how. But I mean, it's not really that hard. People talk about, well, I had making splits and they fail. I said, well, what I have been doing has been successful. It has been you have 3 brood, 1 food in a blank, and a hive. So that gives them something to do to make more room to be able to lay more brood and have food and not struggle. Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I say it's not hard, but I'm just I watched Dave, the guy who does barnyard bees. Take one brood, 1 food, and just throw them in a
Yep.
box. And I'm like, okay, I imagine that would work, but where's your force to keep, to be able to fly out and get food while they take care of the brood,
Yeah, they're not as
Okay,
strong, so it takes them a
yeah.
lot longer to grow. Because I
Yeah.
did that my 1 year. I did that with one of those 10 frames. You divided the dividers in 4 sections.
All right, Tim.
What do you say, folks?
How's the
I'm
flower girl
doing.
doing?
Ooh, boy,
That's what.
the flowers and all that.
They getting pretty. Finally.
Yeah.
Springtime is on its way down here.
Hopefully, in the next couple of days, every bit of that that line, then there's another line that's probably, I don't know, 150 more feet of azaleas, but they're white with a pink vein in them. Then there's some that's just solid white. But yeah, hopefully in the next couple of days, everybody be
Yeah.
open on up.
It
Real
should be
pretty.
in full bloom in the next several days. We hoping anyway. I hope the rain this weekend don't beat out us before we can get pictures.
And I saw that video, Hannah stepping out there and narrating now.
I'm in my comfort zone at my grandma's.
Yeah.
It's more like just talking to myself.
Oh, we heard you.
I'm trying.
I didn't even know she was doing them. On the first one, I was next door talking to the neighbor man over there. Y'all can barely hear us in the background. If you listen real hard, you can hear me and
You hear
Mr.
Tim
Bill talking. Then I'd come back and we was getting ready to start working on that roof. And she's like, check this out. I got a little piece of, you ain't going to believe all the bees and the azalea right there. And
That's what got me going on. I'm gonna do a video real quick because man, there was hundreds of bees in that azalea bush.
And you're sitting there talking about, well, look at me out here. I ain't even have my protective wear on.
I know, but I was a nervous wreck for a minute. But I was like, I'm dedicated now. I'm gonna get one of them things on camera. One of them got tied up in my hair, and she got kind of fussy. I told Tim, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm walking away. I'm not getting that close anymore.
yeah, between that and y'all seen the one with the holly tree.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all, it's just abundance of bees out there. So we went on and put up another swarm trap up beside, well, y'all can see it in her part two, but got one stuck right there on the side of the house. So
I think we're gonna take another one up there and put on the other side of the yard though, because it's bees everywhere up there this year.
I noticed them last week. I noticed them hitting my holly bushes in front of my trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But the next door neighbor, they used to be bushes, now they're trees. And I imagine I can walk over there tomorrow and see them just all over the place.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a swarm when you're underneath those trees when they're filling it up.
Yes. I was standing under the holly trees working the sprayer pump for him while he was spraying the roof. And I got nervous a few times too, him snatching that line through them tree branches and then bees going everywhere. But
I don't think I've
mean,
ever seen holly, honey.
they was all just real calm and gentle though. None of them even acted like they was gonna get fussy.
no,
Yeah,
they
when they're
one thing and getting that nectar is all they was concerned with.
that's all they're worried about when they're collecting like that. You can walk up and play with them a little bit. They don't care. They'll just move from one to the next flower. They're busy collecting their food.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, well, usually when people get the privet, that privet honey is clear, right? The holly honey is clear like that too, and I think it mixes together.
Probably so.
I wish we had some colonies up there already. Her grandma done told us umpteen dozen times to bring a colony or two up there and see how they done. And we know they do well. There's plenty
There's
of
plenty for
foliage.
them to eat off of.
Is
But
the rhododendron honey the one that's supposed to be toxic?
I'm not
I
sure,
don't know.
Frank.
I just know the Carolina jasmine's supposed to be toxic. Or no,
I haven't think.
Mountain laurel.
that's what it is.
Oh, mountain
And
laurel.
also,
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Mountain laurel.
the azalea also has a negative effect too. I don't think it's that bad.
No, it's I was reading online because somebody had asked if they put off pollen or nectar, and it said if humans consume the flowers or
Yeah.
leaves, that it can make you sick. But I was like, I don't know who in the world's gonna be eating azalea flowers.
Well,
Well, they
people
look
eat
good.
roses. People eat roses.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess people eat Tide Pods now too, so I guess I really shouldn't ask
Well,
that.
well, that's the intellect of some of the people nowadays, and the I deserve a trophy mentality
Yeah,
just for showing up.
proof that common sense was bred out a couple generations ago.
Gene pools,
Yeah.
very shallow.
That's what I say. It's about to dry up now, brother.
That
Ain't much
gene
of
pool.
it.
Well, on the common sense side, anyways, right?
Lord, yeah.
Yeah.
But Frank, you was talking earlier about trying to figure out how to get those smaller colonies
Yes.
built up a little better coming out of winter.
Here's y'all's rhododendron. It's mad honey.
Man.
It is rhododendron.
Mhm. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Well,
Okay. So you're
They
not
say it.
supposed to eat honey off azalea stuff then?
They say that the rhododendron, that mad honey,
Mm-hmm.
a teaspoon of it could tear you up bad.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
Bummer.
you get so stoned off of it, you'll start seeing hallucinations.
Oh, I don't want none of that.
But you're only gonna get that from the Indonesian side of the world.
now there's a family friend that we go to. Yep, we posted a few videos going down there, but at the river. And
Yeah.
as you meander back through them woods, it's a little over a mile to get to his camp from the main highway down in the woods. And we was going through there a year before last, and man, we was seeing all these pretty bushes that had these beautiful, they little bitty old flowers, maybe a little bit bigger than a dime or so, but maybe bigger than a quarter, I guess. And we was thinking, well, Bruce done told us umpteen dozen times, bring some bees down here too.
Mm-hmm.
Because we was thinking try to get something off the palmetto. Because between the pine thickets and all that, there's a whole bunch of palmetto mixed in, and apparently palmetto puts off a good honey as well. So when we got down to the camp house, we asked the fellas, said, Bruce Mac, man, what are all these bushes blooming down through here? Them things sure are pretty. He said, oh, that's mountain laurel.
I was thinking
I
on
was
the
like, what?
riverbank.
We didn't think we had it this far down, but apparently it grows quite a bit along the riverbanks and creek systems down here.
But then we found out that honey can be really poisonous.
Yeah.
I was like, no, can't bring bees to the river then.
See, they just take them down there for the holiday and let them go kayaking.
But back where I was, Frank, last Sunday, whenever we was getting ready for our live and trying to find something in the American Bee Journal to go over, there was an article, and I'm pretty sure I got it bookmarked, on how this fellow was describing bringing the smaller colonies out of winter and into spring and doing a little bit of manipulating in the hive. And within a couple weeks, they just took off. But I'll take and get the link on that thing, and I'll hit you up in one of your videos or something and leave it in a comment somewhere. That way, if you're interested in looking at it, you can go through and see how you may want to do it.
Yeah, because you almost see like queen breeders. They have those little mini hives. You'd think, I should be able to stop right in the end of winter and bring them on through and finish up where I started off.
Mm-hmm.
I forget exactly how it went, but it was not really to the point of equalizing, but it was along those lines of borrowing from one to help another in a sense. But the way they, I don't know, manipulated everything
This is
caused the
none.
queen to crank up.
Mm.
Well, that's sort of like I was talking about earlier. What I do just before winter, if I got too much brood in the big hives, I take and drop it down in the smaller hives so they have extra brood and stuff to go through the winter with. You know,
Mhm.
some extra workers. And I do the same thing in spring when they start brooding up and they get too many. Just go start giving it to the smaller hives to help them get along.
Give them a kickstart.
Yeah, and my girls kicked me yesterday or Monday or Friday. They keep me pretty good.
I can't say I didn't mean to laugh whenever you was telling me the story,
Oh,
but
I know it's funny.
yeah, I got a good kick out of it. I was like, well, that sounds like our little adventure we had
Mhm.
in Wave, but
That's exactly what I was thinking.
they,
Well, you if you look at that video, there's part of it where I'm standing. You see me at the edge of the camera while I have it on the watching the march of the bees. I'm sitting there
Mhm.
scratching the inside of my legs because they're starting to itch because I got stung on the inside of my thighs. Yeah, I'm like digging. And I was like, that just didn't look right. But I said, heck with it. It's going out.
Yeah.
It's American blunders. You know,
Wonderful.
I got to, you know,
That's-
everybody knows mistakes are made in the bee yard. And, you know,
If you're
that was a
honest,
goof. Yeah. And that's why usually I do everything raw because of that fact. You know, yeah, I don't get the views because I don't have the pretty thumbnails at the beginning and trailer music and channel breaks and stuff in it. But
I
it's usually
like shows like that better anyway than something that's like perfectly scripted and nothing goes wrong. I'm going, y'all, that ain't real. At least
well
not.
that's the well the end of that video told me it was the end of that video when the wind knocked the phone on the tripod over. It was laying on the ground. It turned itself off. I said, well, that's the end of that video. So I just keep on finishing up what I'm doing. Yeah, uh, I usually have my little be good, behave, and behive at the end of the video. And that one didn't get it.
so not on that one. We're gonna wrap this up.
Mhm. It worked out
Other,
though.
yeah, I went back out this morning and looked at them. There were some that were. I didn't think all of them got in because it's starting to rain, so I covered the box. So, but the pro nukes got the vent on both sides of the box.
Mhm.
So even though one side was open, they were on the other side. It was vented. So they had the smell of the hive. So they all went and they were all bundled, a big old bundle in the back of the hive. They still didn't like me wanting to mess with them this morning, but I said, okay, I'll have to get my jacket on and gloves and go out here and scoop y'all, put you in, get you to encourage y'all to get back in the box, open the top up a little bit. Finally got them all back in, got them in there, convinced that's where they were going to be.
But didn't you say you took out some of the foundation and just put some frames in, and
Yeah,
that way
there's
they
just
can start building?
I just have a couple of them in there, just the frame, no foundation. So,
Mhm.
and I went and popped it today and looked at that, and like they're like 2 inches thick. Oh, I go too high here. 2 inches thick of bees working on those frames.
Oh
I said, well,
wow.
where are all those bees that were boiling at the top yesterday? I said, there doesn't look like many in here. So I started just picking through, saying, okay, they're here, they're covering on there. And I picked that one up, and it's like a whole sheet of bees. It's nothing but bees on that frame, from corner to corner, top to bottom, but 2 inches thick. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I had two frames in there like that. I'm like, that's where all the bees went. So I'm keeping them busy and not taking up all the space.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
So
That'd be neat to see though, them hanging down and holding on to what, because I imagine they measuring and doing all their math and all that stuff to,
That's
to
the
build everything
engineering
out.
department.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that. And sometimes you'll move frames and you'll see them the festoon move when you move a frame. They took one out and you have that space. You move one over, and you see a couple strings of bees that going across it that are festooning each other all the way across.
Hmm.
You know, they're measuring the distance from where they're at to the other side and all that stuff. I mean, I don't know how they work their math, but they do it. You know,
It's amazing how the good Lord programmed them to do that and such. Because, like you're saying, I don't know if they just pulling across there and going, okay, we can get 4,600 sales on this one. The next one over
Yeah.
here,
They better at math than we
oh,
are.
ain't that
I
true?
think I think we need half of this frame needs to be drone brood, and this side needs to be regular. Yeah, cell.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get a lot of that when you do the natural comb, and I actually like the natural comb. It just to me it seems right, but the foundation speeds it up. You know.
Yeah.
You're right. But it is neat seeing them being able to do actually what they do without,
Us interfering.
yeah, that they can fill that whole space in just how they want to, set everything up just right, because they're going to do it right anyhow. Then with those swarms, the crazy thing, and we've seen it in anybody else in here, y'all know as well, you catch a swarm, and within a couple of days, I mean, the comb that they draw out is amazing as far as the amount that they have built just in a couple of days.
Oh yeah.
And not only that, I'm shocked how white it is, how clean.
Yeah.
You know how clean it is, and it also depends on the part time of the year too. Because I've seen them when they pulled it brand new like that, and it was yellow. I guess because it's a hot, depending on where they were getting their nectar from.
Hmm.
And I've seen it like a light yellow color. You know, it's like okay, so you don't only make white comb. Yeah,
Yeah.
We noticed that in the fall. We had gotten I guess a late season, whether there was a swarm or abscond somewhere, but leaving out the feed store one day, we just happened to look over out through the cow field, and on one of those old T-posts, there was a good little cluster of bees laid up there. It was like, ain't no way. So we went and talked to the farmer, said, hey, you mind if we come back and get these bees? And he said, no problem. So we went and got the vacuum, got them in there, headed home with them. And that was the first time that we had seen that yellowish that they was building out. So I don't know if it had something to do with the goldenrod or anything like that coming in or whatever the floral may have been, but it was pretty with that little yellow in there.
I mean, it's amazing what they can do in the time they can do it, and realize they have to consume 7 pounds of honey to create 1 pound of wax. It's the other factor too. They have to consume so much just to produce it. And I think only a certain age bee makes. I think it's makes has the wax glands working.
Mm-hmm.
Although in a swarm, worker bees can revert to use those glands again. So I mean, what we know is really limited, I guess, of what the bees do and how they do it. And it's
They know what
surprising.
they do.
One day you can look at the bees, and the next day you're looking at them in the tree. It's like, weren't you just in the box yesterday? Yeah.
Well,
That's what gets me.
another interesting point that I had been reading up on this sometime last year, but whenever they build that cell, all right, and they place that wax from their wax glands to create that hexagon there. One of the bees, well, it's many bees, but one bee, she will go into that cell and kind of, I guess, weld, if you will, the best way I can explain. She will meander around in that cell and make sure all that is put together nice and pretty. Then, as she's doing that, she will move around in that cell and kind of make it just a little bit bigger. That way, whenever that queen lays that egg and the larva goes through metamorphosis and all that, and whenever they come out to hatch, that worker bee is just the right size whenever she hatches out of that cell. I was thinking, that's just crazy of her going in there and knowing, okay, I need to manipulate this cell a little bit so it'll be just the right size for the next generation down the road.
And what I find interesting too about the cell is that actually the cell itself is round,
Mm-hmm.
even though it has a hexagonal look. It's just the structure that they've had to build it makes it look hexagonal, even though it's, as if you look at it, actually the center is actually perfectly circular.
Mm-hmm.
That's her going around that cell, and as she's making sure everything is nice and tight. That's what she's doing, is rounding that puppy off. And
Didn't they say it's really only hexagonal on the top where they kind of flatten out just the very rim so they can
Yeah.
walk across there?
Yeah. Well, the ribs, the way they build the ribs to hold one to the other gives it that hexagonal look,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the reinforced structure that they built. And actually, circular, anything built circular has a stronger surface than anything, right angles or 45s or anything like that. Rounded has a stronger base structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that from my dad, who's an engineer. Like I bought buckets, and one of them, after putting honey in it, the bottom split on it. And I looked at it, and because he was telling me, some of the buckets will have, it'll come down and be a squared bottom,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being rounded a little bit in the corner. Because the ones that are rounded in the corner are stronger than the ones that are squared, because having a curve to it gives it more substance to hold. And I'm like, okay.
I didn't know they made buckets with a round bottom like that.
Your paint buckets and stuff like that, Lowe's buckets.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a cheap bucket. I didn't buy a food grade bucket. This is when I first started, and the cheap bucket had a squared edge on it. And for some reason, it caused the seam to pop when I put 60 pounds of honey in it.
well, I guess because you got that pressure
Yeah.
going into those corners of that versus, like you saying, it's just covering the whole surface area in that rounded portion. I guess kind of like the sense how the Romans used to build them old bridges with that arch in it. And that way, weight distributes evenly, and you ain't got to worry about collapse of any sort.
Yeah, curved surface is more structural for that weight distribution, like you're saying.
But I mean, all that makes sense in the long run, because you think about whenever you pull a frame of honey, some of those frames have got quite a bit of weight to them whenever you pull that rascal out.
And every one of those cells, even though it's circular, It's at the bottom. It's concave and rounded at the bottom. It's not square.
Mm-hmm.
Same principle, you know. It's got to support life and it's got to support food.
Sounds like us humans could take a few cues from them bees and learn something
Oh, that's true.
as far as building goes.
My phone won't shut up all of a sudden. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Needs to talk to you, Ed.
Answer your phone, Ed.
Nah, I don't want to answer my phone. My girlfriend Spam always calls me. She won't leave me alone.
Hey,
No, my stepdaughter was asking me, "Who keeps calling you like that?" And I said, my girlfriend. She said, "I'm telling Mom." I said, "You tell Mom. Spam keeps calling me. That's her
Yeah.
name. I'll give you her name."
Yeah, please tell her that too. Tell her to leave me alone.
yeah.
I had one do
Yeah.
that the other day. We was leaving out of one of the big box stores, getting some material, and I was kind to the lady. I told her, I said, "Look, take my number off the list." "Okay, sir, I'll do it." And we ain't no more made it just right down the road. And some dude called back from the same company. And I kind of,
He lost his temper on that one.
I did. I did lose my temper on that fella because he just kept on. And I told him, I said, "Man," I said, "just hush your mouth and do not call this phone again." "Well, you're already approved for $100,000. And I said, "I don't want your money. What do you not understand of that? I've got my own money. I don't need yours. So don't call my phone." And he just kept on. And finally, yes, I did. Yeah, I lost my temper.
You know, I've had a doctor bill. One person called me, and I've set up arrangements to pay the doctor bill with the first person that called. Okay, and then about 10 minutes later, someone else calls and says, "I just set a payment up with your guys." So I'll put a note on the file and make sure that they know not to call you again. You know, because I made arrangements, and then I think 30 minutes later, someone else calls from the same people. I said, "Look, quit calling me. I set up the arrangement. I'm not answering this call again."
Yeah.
You
So
know,
they'll be smart out of you.
Frank coming back. He's sitting out in the yard, it looks like. Sitting up there next to them boxes, Frank. Either that or his Wi-Fi is, he sent me a good picture.
It's Skippy. As soon as I get on here, it's Skippy.
Oh, there it goes.
Yep, there it goes again.
That's,
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna start taking screenshots of Frank. Like we did, what we were talking about doing with Bob that time.
Yeah.
The compilation of freeze frames.
Who was that?
James.
James that kept taking all the screenshots every time Bob
Yeah,
froze.
that's what James was talking about. That was funny.
It
Make a
was.
video out of all the free still frames.
Well, Frank, we see you in a hoodie, brother. What's the temperature up yonder way?
I'm going to say 50s.
Oh wow. We sitting
Yeah.
around with the windows open in the house.
It was 70s yesterday. Not today. So I moved closer to the router. I guess I can't get to the bees yet.
Yeah. It looks like you got a little bit of greenery going on.
Oh yeah, we got green. We don't go totally without green because we got the evergreens. That's evergreen there, and that's all evergreens behind there. Yeah, so there's nothing here that you see that is not an evergreen. And then the grass that doesn't go brown. So it's all
Tex-
cedars and like Christmas tree. I don't know what they call them things.
Fir trees.
Yeah, I guess y'all
Yeah.
got a pretty fur up there.
50 foot Christmas tree.
in Texas, is only two times, maybe a total of a month out of the whole year the grass stays green. It's 2 weeks in the spring and 2 weeks before fall or during fall. It'll green up because it starts raining and then it goes into the winter in the fall, and then in the spring it rains a little bit before it's got a couple weeks where it's nice and cool, and then bang, it's hot again and it starts drying the grass out.
Wow.
I lived in
I guess
Texas
you'd
for
be
a few
walking on
years.
the grass and it'd turn into dirt.
Well, you know how when your grass freezes and you walk on it and you hear the crunch? It does
Yeah.
that most of the year in Texas, but it's not cold.
Man.
But
Yeah,
here it's
ours
not too
doesn't go
bad.
brown. Ours just goes green all year round, pretty much.
Hey, it looks like you pretty well about like us as far as the greenery, because we the same way for the most part between the pines and these old water oaks. Them water oaks don't hardly ever drop all their leaves off. They pretty well keep a continuous greenery on them, unless if we actually have a winter to where to do it, then they'll drop a lot more. But most oftentimes it looks just like what Frank's got going on back there.
Mhm.
So we got oaks. They're like oaks on there. But I don't know. I can't see that high to see if they're budding.
Yeah.
What
I
about
started
your
seeing
honey? Do y'all get a good honeydew up there, Frank, with all them oaks and stuff?
I have no idea. Would you see that in your frames?
Well, most oftentimes how we pick it up most is on the hood of the truck.
Yeah.
On your
It's
ride.
super sticky.
Yeah, it'll be like it looks like raindrops on the hood of the truck, but you put your finger down in it,
And it's like super glue.
real sticky.
like
Well,
a
we
pine
get
sap.
that kind. We get kind of that stuff, but it's Let's put it this way: everything that has rust on it turns green.
Yeah.
So it's like a heavy pollen, I guess, greenish yellow.
Huh.
And if you leave it on your car, it kind of like etches into it eventually.
Yeah.
Well, with all them pines and different firs and stuff they got up there, I imagine their pollen load is real heavy. Cause like the cedars and stuff around here, buddy, you can wash your ride off, then 45 minutes later go back and look at it, and it'll be
Green.
Like you just washed it. in
Yes,
the
that's
room.
what we get. Yes, that pollen. Yes, yes, yes.
a lot of that's coming from your pines and them firs up there.
Now, when you were talking about honeydew a minute ago, I was thinking when you said the honeydew, didn't know you were talking about sap. I thought you were talking about what Charlie talks about with those lantern flies having the honeydew.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The what they call them, anthropods, or what the little
Yeah.
bug that
Spotted
poops.
lanternfly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
found my first one today. My first spotted lanternfly. I found it today. It's a
Oh,
tiny
yeah?
one. Yeah.
that's a young one. They get up to 2 inches, they said, and then when they're during their mating, the sides they'll be like a red. Their wings will be red, and the sides would be like a fluorescent yellow or green color.
Yep.
Hmm.
What we got are they're teeny little old fellers, I guess best way to call them, but a little bitty old thing, probably I don't know, big as a carpenter ant, probably not even big as a carpenter ant, but around that size. They little old guys. Now I'm not saying we don't have the lanternfly. I imagine we do.
We just
But-
ain't seen them.
I haven't went out and
It could get to about the size of your thumbnail, so it'll get pretty big.
Yeah, I was reading something. I don't know if I was reading it or listening to something about it, but actually, it was Beekeeping Today podcast. They were talking about the spotted lanternfly, and they said that some trees, what they'll do is because they'll consume the nectar, and they'll hang on the tree and consume the nectar, and they'll defecate all over each other, staying right where they're at. But then the bees come in and lick that up and carry it back to the hive and treat it like honey.
That's
They do it
pretty
just like an aphid,
research
Yeah.
it.
just like an aphid.
But
There
they're
we go.
also starting to find that the spotted lantern honeydew is almost as medicinal as manuka.
Oh,
Really?
nice.
So it has medicinal value, even though it's considered, people consider it worthless because medicine doesn't taste good, does it? So the manuka honey, not the manuka honey don't taste that great, and neither does the spotted lanternfly. And they're starting to find it might have some good medicinal value to it.
Well, don't come to my part of Jersey looking for it, because I'm lucky if I find one or two once in a while, and I make a video because I'm like, yeah, we found one.
Now Charlie says he waits for that stuff to come in every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pennsylvania has them heavier too, but not around here.
Ain't them things an invasive species brought in or something?
Yeah, they came from
Yeah.
China, just like everything else.
Everything. Yeah.
Till something figures out that they're tasty.
We're stuck with them, huh?
I'll be right
Yeah,
back, guys.
Once they move in, you'll have something else that'll be invasive eating the spotted lanternfly, and you'll be like, wow, we have all these birds. Where do they come from?
Yeah.
We did see a couple years ago. We didn't see any last year, but what they call that bird, a tanager.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are red. They look like a canary
Yellow.
and yellow.
Cardinal? Oh no, that's red.
I'm sorry, I said my words wrong. The canary yellow look for the tanager. Then there's a red, and they do have that bright red of like a male cardinal.
But they don't look like a cardinal.
But apparently they come down during migration for spring. They pass through here and I guess head south or north, wherever they're going. But we was sitting out there down at the bees and we was watching them. It's like, what in the world are these things doing? Because we see the red birds all the time, and that's not really, I get like you talking about seeing the lanternfly, oh goodness, you get excited about seeing them. But whenever we seen the yellow one, that drew our attention because there isn't many birds around with that solid yellow look.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we was doing, we was watching what they was doing. Come to find out, they were picking off our bees. They're a bee eater.
Yeah.
The dead ones or the live ones?
Live.
They
They
was
Uh-oh.
grabbing to the air, flying by.
sure
I was
would.
like, man, y'all got to go.
They pinpoint one little honeybee, then they fly out, go get it, then come back, rest on a limb, eat it. They done that, I don't know, for about 15, 20 minutes. And they stayed around for a couple days. And
Close to it.
about it. So. Then they moseyed on, I guess, to continue their migration wherever they went to. But I had no idea that we had any bee eaters as far as the birds around here. I guess
Yeah.
birds that mainly concentrated on eating bees.
Wow. Yeah, I've had them go
Now-
around looking at the dead stuff on the bottom.
Yeah, them little
No.
guinea wrens down here.
No, there. What time of year was that? Is that
It
Tim?
was spring.
Spring?
Mm-hmm.
Like right in swarm season.
So you're
They gotta
worried
feed their
about
babies
queens
too.
going to get mated?
Well, I mean, it did kind of cross our mind of, you know,
Oh no.
if she one of them birds find them a queen, I mean, that'd been a good snack for them besides one of them little bitty old workers.
Mhm.
Good.
They talk about them not coming back for that reason.
Yeah.
That's why I say. That's why I made the comment. You
I
know,
hadn't seen any of them this year.
Now, maybe we'll, I don't know. I mean, they was a pretty little bird, but at the same time, you're thinking, all right, time for y'all to mosey on somewhere else.
Leave my bees alone.
they need to take care of themselves so they can make themselves a living. not fend off a bird.
You can't begrudge them that, I reckon.
Yeah,
I guess.
I
I
get
guess.
those yellow hornet things that people keep thinking are killer hornets, but they're not. They're the other ones that are supposedly bug killers, and they kill other insects and they put them into like little cells in the ground or something like that. And oh, I forget what they call it. Centipedes, something. I don't know. I forget what it is. There's some bugs they eat, but they do come after my bees. I've seen them sitting there and waiting for one and go for one.
What was that? Them lizards
Yeah,
was tearing ours up.
them old green lizards. The
Just
anole,
sitting there.
I think they call them.
I didn't know them little buggers would eat bees the way they do.
Are they sitting right at the entrance waiting for them?
Yes, sir.
Right on the side of the hive. Like just right around the corner of that box from the entrance. And they would pick them off left and right. I run them off in boxes. I don't know how many times. Oh, serious, that was making me mad. It's like, y'all, come on.
My numbers go down hard enough as it is. I don't need help.
We ain't got bees to spare this year.
Are your numbers down too?
Mhm.
How many frames of bees do you have right now, average?
Well,
Well, our boxes are good.
yeah, it's just from where we didn't recover from the beetle loss last year.
Mhm.
But we got the two down there. One was the late season newt, then the one we called Valentine from last year. But as far as brood,
Oh, they're killing it.
a good 7 of the 10 frames are just solid. And I'm it's not exaggerating numbers, anything like that. The queens are just laying up, or the newt. She is doing well, very well. Then we went and checked on Valentine, and we've had her and 2 10 frame deeps all season. And we went and checked just the top box, I don't know, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and just pulling those frames up there, and she was a good 6 to 7 frames of good solid brood. So they're brooding up well. There's plenty of feed out there for them to where we're not having to worry about, trying to get some sugar water or pollen sub, anything like that on them. They're bringing in plenty by themselves and actually doing a little bit of backfilling. So
We just lost a lot between the bad season and the beetles the end of last year. But Lord willing, we're going to get our numbers back up this year.
Well, it's not hard to do from what you see what I'm doing. I'm not even trying, and they popping up.
That's praying it
Filament
pick up.
corner, I think it was a cincada, or something like that killer, they call it.
the cicada killer, yes, sir.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's
We
what I
have
have.
Now,
Go ahead.
I've seen one of those, and I've seen one of those, and that's bigger than from my wrist to my thumb. That's how
Yes,
big
Yeah, but
it was.
they're not the killer hornet, but they sure make you think it.
Oh yeah, I had to take a picture of it and look it up. I said, "Oh my God, they're here!" And I went and I went and Googled it and popped that picture in there, and it came up saying, "No, it's a cicada killer. It's a solitary hornet." But those things are huge.
And the
Yeah.
way they
But
hover like a little, it's it's a neat how they hover around, and they're fast. They just go to one spot and they hover around and they hover over here. It's like wow.
Mm-hmm.
now, Frankie, I'm with you on the European hornets. We got European and bald face down here, and we haven't so far any of the years we haven't had any problems with them getting into the colonies. But whenever the dirt sets in, and we do open feed and a big 5 gallon bucket, and whenever dirt really hits hard, we'll see the European and bald face and the yellow jackets feeding with the honeybees. But most of the fighting that we see is amongst the same species.
Yeah, it's like they
Oh,
fight
okay.
with their own. They don't fight with each other.
Even in the feed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in I've seen in my open feeder, I've seen sweat bees, I've seen carpenter bees, bumblebees, um, hummingbird moths, butterflies, all of them with the bees in the same place, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
worried about nothing.
Now, them yellow
Wow.
jackets, they do help out. We've noticed in a lot of ways, like it's like they're the buzzards of the insect world. Because whenever the bees will drag out a dead or dying bee, whether it's a drone or worker, them yellow jackets will take advantage of
They'll
the free
demolish
pickings
it.
down there versus trying to get into the colony. They'll go down and
It's almost like the bees giving them a bribe to leave them alone.
I think it's
You ever
neat how they
seen?
cut their heads off and their tails off and they take the body and fly away with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't posted it, but I've got one. I sat down there one day, probably about 20, 30 minutes, and that's what that yellow jacket did. It chewed the back of the neck off, or it chewed the head off. Then it went down to the abdomen where it's thinner between the thorax and the abdomen right there. And they would chew that in half and just take it off in different pieces back to wherever they're nested.
See DC here talking about we got more kinds of bugs than they do up there.
Oh, we got some bugs, that's for
Yeah, we
sure.
got some bugs. We was talking about how many more kinds of snakes we have down here the other day than he has.
Yeah, as he said, snakes for sure. Russell.
He kind of, I think he kind of tripped out because I told him, yeah, well, thank God we've only got 4 kinds of poisonous snakes, and he was only 4. Yeah, but that's a lot less than some people have to deal with.
One thing I say about that though is that at least we don't have the world's most poisonous snakes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
could
they
be a
do
lot.
enough damage by themselves, but still,
I guess
it's not like the. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my biggest worry, especially where we're at, because we got a lot of pine thicket, and you got that leaf litter and all, and it may be 3 or 4 inches of pine straw before you even get down
The soul.
to any kind of soil. But where I really, I guess, worry about getting on a snake, that rattler, they'll let you know they're around. The copperhead will, for the most part, you
Try to get out of your way.
get out of your way. But digging around in that pine straw and getting up on a coral snake, now
Mhm.
that's my biggest worry of, I guess, the poisonous species of snakes around here. Don't get me wrong, they're all deadly, but as far as what I've read up on of how the
Wow.
venom affects you, then
Yeah, them coral snakes ain't no joke.
Yeah, the coral's neurological, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. And
It'll shut your breathing down before anything else.
Hmm.
and from what I was reading, as all that is going on, it puts you into like a paralyzed state. So you're very aware of what's going on, but then it starts to create problems where you can't move or anything like that. Then in
It
turn,
shuts down your nervous system.
but it's
Sounds
all, I
like
mean,
a wasp does to its prey when it puts it in those little mud cells and lets it sit there until the babies hatch and eat it alive. I'm like, that is so cruel.
I thought it was brutal.
well, for you spider folks that don't like spiders, that's what them old dirt daubers do around here. They'll kill them spiders, sting them, and paralyze them, and take them and they'll pack them in that little, I don't know, clay cell that they make, and do just that same thing. As that larva grows, it feeds on those old spiders. So for the ones of you that don't love spiders, nature's at work.
Revenge.
Looks like Filament Corner hasn't been in his hive yet.
Well, I'm glad to see he's got some live bees this year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because well, he caught the swarm. He showed a video of a swarm when he caught the swarm, or his mom did, and I was glad to see he's had some back in that equipment he had sitting out in his yard. Come on, I'm trying to hide this thing, and it keeps wanting to switch on me.
Uh-oh.
Well,
I'm
Spanky,
going
hopefully
between one,
this year, bud.
going from one comment to the next, back and forth. It's like crap.
You're doing better than I did with that stuff. I can't figure out that stuff half the time.
I've been playing with it for a bit.
Little miniature horizontal. That thing was awesome.
Do you have
Hannah
two
Braxton.
monitors?
What's that?
Do you have two monitors so you can see all this stuff?
No, I've got one big television. I split the screen because the monitor on my laptop got broke.
Uh-oh.
My cat knocked it in the floor, so I'm using a 50-inch television screen for a monitor. That's why I keep looking up.
And it's hooked to the laptop?
Yeah, through the HDMI cable.
I've done that for many years.
I didn't ever thought of doing that.
Wife ain't happy about it. She has to go watch TV in the bedroom.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Actually, I sent her out to watch a movie tonight so I wouldn't hear them chattering in the background all evening, making noise.
You know this is
That's
live,
what I
and
Well, I know it's live, but my wife don't watch it.
Yeah.
I was like, she gonna have video proof, man.
Well, she had to dig for it. She don't know what episode. No, she we have 3 TVs, one in each bedroom and one in the living room. So there's no chance I'm not going to watch what I want to watch or do what I need to do. So I love her to death, but she has to watch that Hallmark all the time.
Oh
You
no.
guys got to try that TikTok. They don't even record the live. If you want the live, you got to go digging for it and then copy it and then post it.
They're trying to
Otherwise, it all
ban TikTok.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they're trying. That's why I think that's why YouTube is pushing the vertical lives right now.
Is that what
Yeah,
all
I've
that
heard.
about? Doing these vertical lives?
Yeah, and they actually suppose if you're monetized, I think they're paying more for the vertical lives. So they're trying to draw the people to doing vertical lives because TikTok they're talking about canceling TikTok in the United States, banning it.
Yeah, okay. But
Well, the
only social
TikTokers are
media
going
channel-
strong.
I don't know.
I've been monitoring it live, so there.
Well, well, David, you're right about that. Because TikTok is actually based out of China, I think.
Yep, originally was
main-
China. Yep,
Their main servers are in China, so that
Yep.
says that it's a security risk to your data. It makes sense because they're not, they're not from our country, so they're not going to live by our standards.
Mhm.
yep.
That's our data, not yours.
Yeah. Well, if you're using their servers, whose data is it really? Even though you're creating it, it's going and hitting their server, and now it becomes their property. They can do with what they want.
Look at it.
Because when everybody goes signs that those agreements, you just click on it to go through it, just get through it, so you can do whatever. And part of that is they have rights to that information.
I just went to an
You-
HVAC class 2 days ago, and they were talking about the new air conditioners and heaters have a smart chip in it now. And if you sign up to the program, you can monitor this system's operation from afar. So you don't need gauges. You can tell the temperature rise. You can tell the cycles. You can tell how fast the fan speed is. You can tell every time somebody walks in front of the thermostat. And all that data, like you said, is whose.
Well, Spanky's got a point. Our government still steals our stuff. We're monitored on every angle you can think of. I mean, not to be, a downer, but there's no expectancy of privacy anywhere anymore. Not even your own home.
No.
All the traffic lights got those little cameras on there so they can say when a car pulls up and so they can change the traffic patterns. But still, if that camera takes a picture, all you need to do is grant permission and then whose data is it? What do they use it for?
Your permission is when you go to get that license to go drive.
Mm-hmm.
You sign that paperwork. There's stuff hidden everywhere. You can't trust nothing. Can't believe nothing. I love the United States. I love my country. Don't get me wrong. I don't trust my government as far as I can throw this building.
Well,
Got
Yeah.
that right.
There's a guy on TikTok. He does nothing but traffic light. I guess he works in the industry and does nothing but videos on traffic lights and how the controls work. And some of them use radar, some of them use the pictures and how they sense the car. You can see the car come up and they have the little squares and they can tell the position. It's so much information on every car that pulls up. I'm like, they got the license plate. It's like all automatically in the software. I'm like, wow.
It's scary.
right.
It's
Track
kind of
every
like those
movement.
doorbells, the Ring doorbell, and they track the people coming up and stuff. It's the same thing. It's the face recognition. All of a sudden, the database shows up. This is so and so because it's like, wow, how do they do that? They know who it is just by the picture.
Well, like you were talking a minute ago, about those,
Yeah, they
about the
keep talking about
movement.
it's half track is a push button start, but that can't be that can be hacked.
Hot wired and hacked are not the same, Keith.
Yes.
But the problem I'm running into is a lot of the stuff we buy now has that technology in it. So if you replace like a board, the heater boards, all the new ones have that stuff in it. All the light bulbs you buy, they have those multiple colors. They have that data capture in it. In fact, some of the light bulbs you can talk to the phone or through the internet through your light bulbs. You can play music through your light bulbs. So it's like they're no longer just a light bulb. So anything that has that stuff in it that you would buy to replace, you may not know it, but it's there.
They got stuff on the motherboards in cars that if they really want to, the police say you're in a chase, they can shut down your engine on your car so that you
Mhm.
can go nowhere. It's there. They just don't use it right now
Right. Like
because they're
OnStar
afraid of
used
the
to do.
repercussions of it. Yeah, they got repercussions. They're afraid of the repercussions of shutting someone's vehicle down on the road. like that.
But in theory, you could get the whole update. You could call them up and say, I have a glitch. Can you work around this? Get me home? Can you start my car? I lost my keys. Theoretically, they could do all that stuff. All you do is
Mhm.
pay a service fee, and they should be able to do that. Sign the
Well,
papers.
if you're in a chase, the cops are behind you. You ain't got time to call them people to reroute all that stuff. But you know,
Turn back on.
Yeah.
and turn it back on. I need to get out of here.
Yeah, they used to do that with the police cars. They used to have, where we got to clear a route, and then all the traffic lights would change, and so they can get through.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you used to see them little. Best way I can
It's
explain
true.
it, like a truck horn. You'd see up by the red light up there, and whenever it picked up the decimal from a siren,
It would.
it would
switch.
change the lights and things like that. But it won't be long. You talking about they putting all that technology in your air conditionings, and we know it's in everything else we do. But
Not in our house. We ain't got nothing smart in our house.
no, our house is dumb, and we're gonna keep it that way.
Now, as soon as you replace it, you don't know it, but all the new stuff, they're doing it.
That's just scary.
They don't have to tell you, like Ed was saying, they don't have to tell you because they may not activate it or make it public, but it's there in case they need it.
they've been doing it for years. They've been doing it for years. It's just that what you're getting is a more updated version, like say in whatever's in the TV set. You know, you've had it since they started making LCD screen TVs. LED
Yeah,
TVs.
that
I mean,
TV thing is crazy. I was talking to my cable guy, and he was showing me. He says you can see everything everybody's watching because he goes through the neighborhood. It's like you can see this one's doing this, and this is how much data they're using. This one's connected. They're watching this. It's like, holy cow!
yeah, they've had that stuff in TVs for years. It's just that they slowly turn a little bit of this on the new updates and stuff. They'll do new TVs. They'll have more updates, and why do you got when you got a smart TV and you plug it up? Why has it got an update? It's a brand new TV. Why you need to update it?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially it's set on a shelf 6-7 months, but it's going to update the firmware.
Yeah,
It's all gonna get to the point to where no matter whether you buy an AC unit from Frank or you go and get you a refrigerator, if you don't pay the bill or if we just get a little fussy with you, just hit the button, turn it off.
well, the Honeywell thermostats that I installed, the new smart ones, if I set it up with the program, I, as the contractor, now I have to pay a fee for it, but I can get the data so I can remotely operate it and stuff for the customer and get all the data of what the issues are. And I'm like, oh, interesting.
I don't. It's as the preacher said, it sounds good, but it's not good in sound, in my opinion, on things like that. Okay, I get to the point where you can look it up like a mechanic. You plug your deal into the car, and it gives you a diagnostics of, number 2 cylinder ain't firing, or something along those lines. I get that to a point, but I don't want it to where that cell phone's enough.
The cell phone's more than enough.
And if I can help it, you're not going to know everything that I'm doing. Not that we're doing anything wrong, but it's just.
It ain't none of the government's business what I'm doing sitting inside my house.
When I get into Christmas lights, the guy was talking about the data that the new Christmas lights I communicate to the outside yard is very similar to the internet, and how I'm not supposed to connect the internet because I might end up having my Christmas lights talk to the internet and crash my internet. And he says basically the way the internet works is you send out your information and everybody gets the stuff, all the information. It's just that they say, oh, it's not for me, so they pass it on. So as long as you're honest, they keep passing it on, no problems. But if you're dishonest, that's where these hackers come in. Instead of saying, oh, just pass it on, you take it and keep it and open the stuff and use it. So I was like, you kidding me? So everything that you think is private and all these conversations, all these videos that you think are going to somebody, They're actually going to everybody. It's just that they're not opening up the whole package because they're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as they all do honesty, it all works. I'm like, wow.
Well,
And then
How
you get a
many?
hacker that goes in there and says, oh, no, I'm not honest. I broke the rules. I'm opening it.
yeah, and it's mine now.
Yeah.
Yep. Or they make a fake one and send it to your friends, and the friends open up and think, oh, it's you. It's not you. And you're hacked too.
Yep. One of the things that drew our attention was about 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. We were really trying to do our construction business as professional as we could, get the best insurance we could, make sure our bonds was lined out right, the whole kit and caboodle. Well, we were driving down the road, and me and her were jawing back and forth about, okay, look, we need to call one of 3 insurance companies and get an idea on how much, insurance we need to get for the business. Well, y'all, we was pulling up to the Walmarts, and I had opened my phone up. The Book of Faces.
Mhm.
Before I shut all that off on my phone because I got tired of hearing all the dinging every 10 seconds. But before then, when somebody liked something or whatever the case may have been, the phone would ring. And I was looking at one of the notifications in there. And when I got done with that, it got to the main menu once again. And I scrolled about a half of a scroll. And lo and behold, guess what popped up in our feed?
Suggested for you ads on business insurance. Like, tell me you morons ain't listening to
Yes,
what we're
ma'am.
talking about.
Sure did. And we have noticed that. I can't tell you how many times after that, even on this YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be chatting about something in the vehicle and won't even have the phones turned on. But get home or take a break, whatever the case may be, open it up and bam. There's something.
The first ad you see is whatever was the last thing you was talking about.
You're going,
It creeps me out.
yeah, boy, they
And
listen.
I think that's why TikTok bans certain words. You talk to people and you're like, one of the things you're not allowed to talk about is religion. And I'm like, what? Because they don't want you telling about the gospel or nothing out there. They squash it right from day one.
Well, out on that. And I tell you, if this stuff here, if it ever gets that way for us, you tell me I can't talk about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we
I'm
gone.
gone.
Send, call me on the phone if you want to talk or something like that. But it's coming to that point. We all know that the reality is coming that one day it will be to those points. But if I ever get that notification, they say, hey, you can't talk about this or that and chicken fat. Now, we enjoyed it, y'all. It's nothing against y'all, but Gunline Bees is gone.
It makes it real when it says, hide the word of God in your heart, put it on your mind, put it in your soul, memorize it. It makes it real because you realize that all they do is turn it off and it's all gone. And if you don't have it written down somewhere, or you don't have it memorized, you don't have the word of God anymore. So
Yep.
I got my old paper Bible with me all the time.
yeah,
They
because
can't.
they turn it off, and then all of a sudden you don't have that digital.
Honestly, though, I don't even rely on like those Bible apps or anything. I'm gonna take my physical Bible with me to church when I go.
I like it when I'm in the comments and somebody's talking. Like the other day, somebody's saying
There you
whether
go.
whether Jesus is God and how they could be the same person. And I'm like, what can I
And it
use? And I thought, oh yeah, how about the marriage thing? Where once God combines, you can't separate. And I just mentioned that in my little chat connection and found me the verse. And I'm like, wow, now that I like. I don't have to remember exactly where the passage is. It comes right up, copy it,
Yeah.
put it right in the post. This is it. Once God makes something together, you can't separate it. It's the same thing with us. You know, we are the marriage of the Lamb, and when we're married to Christ, we are become one. Can't
There we go.
separate us.
Well,
Yep,
just like
that's true.
the parable of, they asked that very question, you know, how can three different beings, if you will, be one? Well, the parable is, you know, does the body not have many parts, but yet one?
Yeah, it's one unit.
It's one setup, but there are multi-functions within that one setup. But
Like
But
so,
we're also a triune being, just like God. We're
mhm,
created in His image, which means we have a mind, a soul, and a spirit. The
mhm.
mind's part of your body, of course. All right. So, you know, we're three entities. We walk in this world, we walk in spiritual world every single day and don't realize it. What we do, one has repercussion into the other, back and forth. You know, so like we're like you take something in a pot and you stir it. You know, we react in two different worlds. You know, that's what we are. We are three beings in one. When you die, what's left? You know, your spirit.
Mhm.
It goes
And
it
then
goes
and
on.
you go back to the beginning when it says, "In the Word," or "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word." I forget exactly how it goes.
One was with
It
God
all
and the
started from God, and He created all these things. Where did it all come from? It all came from God. So basically, He created everything, so it's all part of Him. It's just that we all have like choices, and He gave us all of these things that we can do as our jobs. It's all part of the way He. It all came from Him.
Mhm.
we was we having that conversation with you, Ed?
Yeah,
Oh,
not too long ago. Yeah.
we was having it today, but I think it was,
Oh,
we talked to you on the way back, but we was talking to Mr. Mike Conley that you see in the chats. We talked to him on the way over while we went and did our little dinner date today at the old Catfish House. And boy, that's some fine eating. I just had to say that. But we had church on the way over there with him, and a lot of that was that exact same discussion on things.
Yeah, it was a really good conversation. Well,
I'm just glad He
and
gives us the insight and tells us some of this stuff because it's very mysterious, and I'm glad He, you know, shares some of it.
Oh
mhm.
yeah,
well,
it's just
about you talk about hiding the word in your heart, hiding the word in your heart. If they take this or they take the electronic one, you don't have to know the address. You just got to know what he says and how it correlates to what's going on. In context. And the only way you know that is by having your nose in it and knowing
Yeah.
it, spending the time talking about it, sharing it. It becomes part of who you are.
I
Mhm.
always get
So
worried about that one that says if you change the word of God, uh, there's some punishment. I forget how it goes, and I'm like, I keep worried. One tissel. If you change one tissel, I'm like, or one period, and I'm like, I get worried that I might miss an exclamation point or something. Whether
well,
Well,
for some people, um, you have to water it down somewhat, make it understandable to some people. Because I don't understand King James, so you make it plain, these and thou,
yep.
or me and you and they. However, whoever fits in that context of that verse, it's still not really changing it. You know, you can. I'm not saying destroy it and turn it all out of proportion. I'm just saying that you can simple it down to some people so they can understand. Why is this? And you say, and you sort of quote, you surmise a verse in a short statement to them.
Paraphrase, I guess, right?
Paraphrase, yeah. I was looking for the word; it wasn't coming to me. But
I think,
I don't think
correct
that's damaging word.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think on that end, Frank, it's more of changing the written word to fit a lifestyle of which many are trying to do nowadays without going into chasing a rabbit around the field, if you will. But oftentimes nowadays, the Bible is taken out of context because folks will read one verse and go, see what I said? It's right here. Well,
When that ain't nothing to do with what
No.
that verse.
They didn't read the 3 or 4 verses below or after it to figure out the context.
there you
Yeah.
go. Keep on reading, and the word will explain itself. in
I
detail.
guess that's where the millstone comes in. If you distract one of these little ones of mine and they leave my, becoming part of my family, it's better for you to have a millstone and wrap around your neck and throw you to the bottom of the lake. I'm like, I think that's where you're saying that comes in, where you're totally screwing with somebody's interpretation and misleading them to the point where they're lost forever.
Well, no, the punishment in the Bible for adding to or taking away from God's word was Jesus said you'll have every curse in this Bible, every plague, everything will come down on you for that. The
Yep.
millstone was talking about leading the children astray.
Yeah, and that could be the actual children or God's children
Yeah.
leading them astray. So
Yep.
if you lead that child or a person of God away, then yes, absolutely, he's referring to it's best to have the millstone around your neck.
Mhm.
Well, you look at society today. Society, English language, for lack of a better term, has become a bastardized language. Because what terms meant one day will be changed. Words mean one thing one day, and will be changed 10, 20 years later. They'll change what the meaning of that word is. So having our language changes a lot. Our meanings, our interpretations. When I take some interpretation of some things, you get a legal document, may not mean the same thing. That's why you have
Yep.
to have a lawyer read the terminology, because their definitions are going to be different than what yours are, because you're used to this, they're speaking this. And those terms are the same words, but have a different meaning. And that, I think that's a lot of what refers it being that, changing, not one, changing the word itself. I think that's what God was referring to, is that because I said it this way and this is the way I meant it, although this word over here may be like it, doesn't mean it's this.
Yes.
That's like truth.
Yeah.
Truth nowadays is subjective. What I think is true is true. What you think is true is true. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Truth is what
Like sin becomes subjective.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I had to go back on my little note or look in my Bible there on what it was, but I believe during our Bible conference, I believe it was Acts, in the book of Acts, but the word rest,
W-R-E-S-T.
W-R-E-S-T. But many people that would read scripture and take the word rest nowadays, you would be thinking R-E-S-T. I'm going to relax and take a break along those lines. But when in truth, the word rest was meaning to twist or manipulate or to turn around. So it's very important, like you say, to go back, and especially if you're looking through the King James Bible, if you don't understand what that word is, go back into the old dictionaries or try to find it in the Greek and go, okay, this is what the word really means, versus like Ed was talking about, how the world has changed the word into something totally it's not even related to what is actually
Me
being
and my
said.
daddy had this same conversation over coffee this morning.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the exact same conversation.
yeah. But
Yeah, it's interesting when like it was written back then, and they lived a different way of living, and it's like it doesn't make no sense what they're talking
Mhm.
about because we don't do things like that anymore, so it makes no sense.
You know, when you read the scripture, you got to take in the concept to understand the New Testament. You have to understand what the Old Testament was talking about, the way they believed, the way they thought. I mean, you have to take in cultural significances of what's going on, as well as what they believed. You if you don't get those references in what Christ talks about, I'm changing this to this because this is not what it was supposed to be, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
And if you don't follow that, you're not going to understand. You're definitely not going to understand Paul if you don't understand the Old Testament and some of the apocrypha he studied. Jasher, Jubilees, and stuff, different books like that. If you don't look at them, you're not going to understand what Paul's talking about in a lot of places. In Scripture, you have to dig. Um, you just can't take it for face value when you're looking at it. Because you're going
I
to think
still
about it.
can't. I
Go
still
ahead.
can't imagine being back in those days and not having the scripture in your hands, and maybe hearing somebody preach about it on certain days that are holy days or something like that. I just can't imagine that not being able to. We are so lucky to have it.
Well,
you
the
read
Jewish children back then, before you were 13, you had to memorize the Torah word for word, exact, because part of your ceremony in when you become they got elevated from at 13 to being a man. Part of your ceremony was you had to recite a certain portion of scripture, and they didn't pull a scroll for you to read.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
had to know it.
yep,
So that's the big thing. They were made to understand and read scripture from a young age, and most of them were trying to wanted to become a rabbi. They wanted to become a scribe or a Pharisee, and that was what their family's traditions were. So
yep.
that's what they were trying to push that all these children to do this, and so it became part of their life. So when um, when Christ was 12, went to the temple and he started preaching to the synagogue. They're saying,
Mhm.
he's not a man of letters. How does he understand the scriptures? Basically saying, you know, this information. He's teaching it with authority.
Mhm.
Well, it came from him. He was God, so it came from him. But he was younger than the traditional child. He was at least 12 years of age when he was wandered away from his mother and was in the temple. Okay, so he
Mhm.
had not reached the age of being a man. So how does he know in depth all this information? So you got to look at that's part of scripture, understanding their mentality where they were at. So when they
Mhm.
say something, they quote something, they quote it because it's not written in their hands.
Yep. Can't look it up on their cell phone.
No,
imagine the fit Mary had going back. Where in the world is this child? You know, then going back and finding him at the temple, and you have all these religious folks that are just mind blown of this child.
Knows more than all of us put together.
Uh-oh, we losing?
Okay.
Yeah, might
I'm
be
not
me.
I'm
lost.
here. I'm here. I was answering something.
Oh,
No, the thing is, what you're talking about. Realized too in that situation, she had traveled. They had traveled 3 days before they realized Christ wasn't with them.
Yeah.
All right. Then they had to turn around and travel another 3 days back. So you had all that time to confound these guys with the word in 6 days, minimum 6 days, or maybe even 7, because in that time frame could have been Sabbath. They had to stop and rest. They couldn't go to the next day. So you're talking about a week. He was by himself teaching these folks about the word.
I can't imagine taking a week to go to church on Sunday.
Well,
And we complain about having to walk to the car.
I mean, it's crazy with some of the stuff that we complain about and take for granted. There was a time when people, they probably didn't die more than 50 to 100 miles from the day where they were born. If they even left the state to go somewhere else, it was an oddity, a rarity. They traveled somewhere.
I often wondered how they ate, because you know how we eat snacks all day long and we eat 3 meals, and I'm thinking to myself, we have hot food, we have cold food. I'm thinking there's no way you could be traveling and have all these varieties. There's no way.
It was probably just simple rations of bread and honey.
You could make over a campfire at night.
If you got lucky on getting you I don't know, we'll just say a deer, like just being around here, you got lucky and got up on a piece of game. But yeah, I imagine most of it was just probably real simple rations of sorts.
You couldn't have meat and potatoes every night.
No.
Larimore
just said that's because we're spoiled, and he is so right.
Yeah, we are spoiled because of all the advances that have been made since that time.
Convenience.
I mean, you just think about how much trouble it was just to make bread and grinding up the grain, and you had to plant the grain, and you had to harvest the grain and carry the grain. I mean, you'd be like a year just before you get something to eat.
Yeah.
I'm sure they had reserves, right? That stuff you can go pick up the grain at the store and grind it yourself at the house. But
I mean, they had market back then where you could trade or things along those lines to get your wheat, your flour, your different meals or whatever sort. And I mean like a flour meal along those lines. But yeah, during the winter seasons, if you was able to, I imagine it was best to have the barns stocked. That way you could make it into the spring season.
Yeah, I know our bread only lasts maybe a day or two, and it goes moldy. I can't imagine storing grain up in silos, hoping to be able to eat it throughout the year. It's like that's.
Well, keep the weevils out, things of that nature.
I'm sure you get some loss somewhere along the way, because that's just the nature of things.
I remember hearing the passage. I think it was Naomi or one of them that went to the grinding floor, and she took a nap after grinding in the grinding rooms. And till her kinsman redeemer came. I'm like, it takes that long, a whole day and a half to grind some wheat.
Oh yeah, I watched a video not long ago how some of us do that, and they would have them on millstones, and you would take your mule, and that mule, just like you would do sugar cane or something nowadays, the old way of doing sugar cane and things, but that old mule all day long walk round and round and round, and that's what would grind that mill up. But like you say, you could probably just do so much amount at a time until it got it ground up to the consistency you wanted it. Then, add a little bit more. But yeah, I imagine it was a much longer process back then versus especially what we got nowadays, where the Industrial Revolution opened up things for us in the modern times. Uh-oh. There you go. He done pushed the wrong button. Been
He's
there,
supposed
bud.
to be dipping out on his own line.
Kicked out of his own live.
Oh dear. I can't say nothing. I've done it 2 or 3 different times on there.
That's an understatement.
But
They still
Yes,
call you
sir.
Buttons?
Oh yeah. He ain't shaking that nickname.
it's some interesting times how they done things back then. But they made it.
It adds up twice.
Yeah, I'm up there twice. Yeah, I dropped off for some reason. I don't know what the heck happened. We got Mike coming in here, guys.
Uh-oh.
Minnesota.
Minnesota Mike.
How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Has Mike removed his wraps on his hives yet?
Oh heavens, no. I think Monday morning we're going to be 17 degrees, and I think Thursday or Friday morning we're going to be like 19 degrees. So it's
Wow.
they're staying in there. Frank, I heard you asking about grinding grain. Actually, if you use a millstone, a trough millstone, it goes pretty quick. But you're wondering about how you store grain and whatnot. You know how that goes. My great uncle was a pretty renowned theologian, and he did a book called "Prairie Faith: Pioneering People: A History of the Lutheran Church in the Midwest." And one of the things that people would do is they'd actually take their grain and store it, their seed grain, Frank, and store it in hidden walls in their house. So if people started starving, they wouldn't come over and raid their houses and try and get the grain. And there was one instance where a guy, his family was just flat out starving. That was it. And he went over and to the other fellow's house and opened up a knot in the wood and brought a bucket over. He says, "I'm sorry. I know that you guys are saving this, but my children are starving," and pulled it out and took a bucket of grain back. It was
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty intense on the prairie. Very,
So they
very
stored
intense.
it in the grain format until they needed it.
Yeah, and that's why that's one of the reasons that you see all granaries. They're actually not on the ground; they're elevated up. The wood buildings. That way, it lessens the chance of mice coming up, and you don't have the humidity being like trapped down below. So, unfortunately, I
Because
know a
I've
lot.
heard of like when you do the corn silos and stuff that it starts to ferment and it starts to break down as it's sitting in there in great heat, and I just couldn't imagine having great amounts and not having it go bad.
Right, you're talking about silos though, and silos. Once you chop the corn and everything you put in there, it actually ferments. And by the way, that's one of my favorite smells on the entire planet. It's also deadly. If you
Silage.
don't have silos well ventilated, but what happens is it starts to ferment, and that process of fermentation actually preserves it.
Okay.
No, when it used to
Oh.
be, so when it used to be like 30 below or something like that, Grandpa would actually get up there, climb up in the silo with a hatchet, and break up frozen bits of corn and silage and whatnot, and throw it down for the cattle.
Oh, it won't come down through the bottom chute anymore.
It wouldn't go down. Yeah, it's frozen. So you actually have to go up there and do it. Quiet, gentle, amazing Norwegian man. Just
I heard you could fall down in the grain and like keep going and suffocate.
no, that's something that's a separate issue. That would be like a wheat silo where you can get in that. I'm talking about silage in a silo. Chopped
For the corn, you don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a solid thing. You can get in there, walk around, jump up and down. Sometimes I'd open up the door just to the silo just so I could smell that fermented corn. It was so delicious. It was amazing. And I'm sorry to just go off on that. I just had to stop in there because I thought, one last thing. Do any of you know what Globe Tepe is? And I know I'm pronouncing that a little bit. Globe Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe.
Thank you. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's one of the oldest archaeological intact sites that we have, and apparently they knew the common impact was going to happen that created the Younger Dryas. There was an impact over Michigan and Canada or something like that. Got rid of all the glaciers and everything. That was in about 10,600 years ago, which is the same time they started burying Globe Tepe. They buried everything. But anyway, so they're excavating. One of the things that they found, Frank, was thousands of those millstone, trough millstones. Just thousands of them. And so apparently it
So
was a huge-
everybody would have one. There were certain like portable
we don't
size?
know. We have no idea. We don't know if it was like a processing area or yeah.
Or is it something that wears out to the point where they throw them away very often?
These were not worn out. So it's even possible that, I haven't seen an in-depth report on this to see how much they were used. It's possible they were even building them there and, selling them. But
So it might have been like the source of many people's.
we don't know. Bottom line. But yeah, I've seen these things laid out in the field. It was absolutely amazing. It was pretty incredible.
I was watching one of you guys beekeeping, and they were talking about the glacial lakes up there. I don't know who it is up toward Michigan, and I'm like, I didn't know that it went from Michigan up toward Canada. That whole thing was a big lake. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, if you were down at in southern Minnesota, between Wisconsin and the Mississippi, the Mississippi Valley there is like 8 miles wide, and the Mississippi is just down on the bottom. All of that was just totally washed out when those glacial dams broke. In fact, if you look at the Scablands, I think, where are the Scablands, folks? Are they in Oregon or whatever? But there was a glacier that broke over Nebraska, and it ran the entire length west and then dropped down there. It basically made a mini Grand Canyon in a matter of a week or two. If you really want to find out something, there's a wonderful Minnesotan geology historian called Randall Carlson, and he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast several times, and he talks about how insanely big these washes were. We're talking about flows of water that were like a mile high, running like 400 miles an hour. It's just insane. There's actually a mountain, and I can't remember where Vince explained it, but it actually broke loose at the base and actually moved the entire mountain. So,
And we complain about global warming. I guess this has been going on for many, many years.
yeah. Climate change is actually, in the last 10,000 years, it's one of the most stable weather patterns that we've ever had. And you got to remember in 1934, we had, oh my gosh, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, whatever. They're all about 115 degrees. In fact, my grandpa was out hand sawing corn because he couldn't run the horses. It was so hot. Neighbors yelled at him and said, "Come on over here, Philip, come here." Gave him a glass of some grape juice that from their ice house. Do you have any idea how hot it is? 115 degrees in the shade.
Wow.
And you're also saying ice, so that means they got down cold enough to be able to process that. I mean, I haven't seen ice on lakes for years.
Well, that's where you live. Yeah, no, the lakes always freeze here. In fact, I have my grandpa's ice tongs here someplace. But anyways, I'm sorry to dominate the question.
So they had ice back then, and then they had 100 and something degrees in the summer.
The weather patterns in the 30s. You hear about the Dust Bowl. It was insane. You'd have like 35.
So they went from
35.
extreme high to extreme low.
Yeah, it was all over the doggone place.
And we complained a couple of degrees in the winter then. Holy cow.
Yeah, I think, Ed, weren't you in Alaska?
No, I wasn't in Alaska. Dave's been in Alaska. I think Dave.
Oh, Dave. Okay. Yeah. No, it ran all over the place. We have
I've been in Minot.
Oh, hey,
Close
that
enough.
counts. That counts.
Minot, North Dakota. That's close enough.
Yeah. No, my goddaughter's living there. Yeah, no, it gets interesting. Oh, you lived in Anchorage. Thank you. Yeah, Anchorage wasn't too bad, but oh yeah, I loved Anchorage too. Yeah, I did a trip up to Alaska in 2006 and shot 10,000 photos and videos.
Isn't that the place that has 6 months dark and 6 months light?
Not so much in Anchorage. You get north of there, like the Copper River. The sun never goes down completely. So it's
You're
just
wearing sunshades all the time?
when what? Why?
Because it never goes down, the sun?
Oh no, it just gets really dim. There's still a little bit of light, so 13-year-old kid was caught 100-pound king. Yeah, my partner was up on a reservation up in Canada, and it was very poor there, and a squaw, he caught a giant salmon, and Casey was 8 years old. She said, if you can get that out of the riverbank, you can have it. We couldn't move it. So yeah, there are giant fish hidden in some of those lakes, and I'm talking about ones that are 6 to 8 feet long and maybe bigger. But anyways,
All fresh water?
yeah. We had some huge fish go under our boat. We were on some reeds, and there's a family of loons there. My brother and I are standing on the seats of this. I was up at the Hooker Lake chain, and Dave said, I think something went under the boat, and the 2 baby loons were the size of ducks. It ate both of them. It ate 2 ducks, basically, full size. So, I've seen people up there that have got fish on, and they never, after 8 hours, they never got them in the boat. There's giant fish.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I always thought freshwater fish were always small.
No, giant lake trout and whatnot. No, they can get insanely big. In fact, we actually don't know how big they can get. So
How many years does it take to get that size?
I don't know. Like in Minnesota, I can't remember if it's a male or female muskie, but for that to get 54 inches long, it takes about 6 years. So that's a muskie, though. I can't answer you. I have seen 9-foot long sturgeon out from where I used to on the St. Croix, north of the Mississippi. You could see them. It was obvious how long they were. The biggest sturgeon I've ever seen was 16 feet long, and that was a breeding fish. And yeah,
So they're not like 100-year-old fish, like our trees or something, like they're 500 years old or something, and they're really huge. But
yeah, so that one might have been
fast growing it.
Yeah, that one might have been 200 years old. I don't know, but yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. It just absolutely nuts. But anyways, I'm sorry to dominate the conversation. I just want to share a couple things with you guys. So that's and by the way, Dave said something about reading Paul or something. It was all Greek to him. I'm like, did you just come up with that one? That was that was fun. My great uncle could actually read and write all of the old languages and whatnot, and it was interesting. But he would still forget to drive out of a car wash. He was an absent-minded genius. It was pretty funny. But anyways, there's a tower in Tel Aviv. So this would have been in the 80s or 90s, and they were there. He was there on sabbatical to write a book. I can't remember what he was doing, what book that was. But anyways, you could go in this tower, guys, at like 7 a.m. for maybe about a half an hour. That's the only time it was open. Well, he went up there with he and his wife, and that was they ran into another American couple there. They're like, oh, what are you doing here? Well, I'm here to write a book. I'm on sabbatical. Well, what do you do? Well, I have a children's show. Oh, really? What's it called? Mr. Rogers. He had no idea who this man was, this ex-Marine or whatever. It was just
wow.
It was just really funny, but I don't know. That's a little bit of fun there. So, anyways, just theologian stuff. That's kind of fun. In fact, I was trying to look up some of the books that he'd written here before I'd come on. A list of books Yeah, he was an amazing guy. So, anyways, I just heard you talking about Paul when I turned on, and not only that, I was amused that I actually found you alive for once, Ed. So
Finally caught me live, huh?
I caught you there, sir. So
Yeah, he's been dropping in and out tonight.
that's okay. That's
For
okay.
the
I've been
ones
playing
that-
like it.
What's
I've been
that?
playing like I freeze.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of fun. So,
He's got his 55-inch monitor tonight.
ooh.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my laptop. My laptop's hooked up to that. That's what I use for my computer.
Same here. No, Dave, we don't have any more snow here. As a matter of fact, we're entering our 4th year of drought. So my lake's down 2 feet, and that's attached to the groundwater. So it's pretty brutal. And with a giant forest a huge forest next to us and whatnot, we're in a freaking tinderbox. This is scary at this point.
I remember your last year you had their neighbor fire, right?
Yeah, that was some idiot that was burning leaves, and it traveled and got in someone else's. Yeah, that was messed up.
Mike,
But-
I know this may be kind of an oddball question, but like down here, many of the big landowners, they burn every year. And I understand during a drought you can't do things as such, but in a normal season, do the landowners not burn to get rid of much of the fuel if there's an event of a woodland fire?
The private guys just keep the land cleared up, and unfortunately, the public lands, they leave everything right in place. And we have had it. What was the year that the Titanic movie came out? Was it 1999? There was a fire here that started in the Carlos Avery Wildlife Center. That's like literally 1 mile to my east, and that was some other idiot with a fire. And I called up. I was down in Houston. I called up my neighbors. I said, "Kick the door in, grab the cats, take the canoe," and yeah. So they don't, and that's the problem that they're having out west. Because the public lands, they leave them just the way they are. The private lands are smarter than that. They're not burning them out, though, Tim. They don't burn them out here at all. Come to think of it, and I think maybe that's because we have enough pine trees in here and whatnot. So, and if you set a fire there, if you have like a 6 or 7 story pine tree come on up, it literally takes about 60 seconds for that thing to burn. It goes up like a Roman candle. And
So you can't do the burning out.
No, it's too bloody dangerous. You lose too many trees. So
See, like us, we have a lot of, well, many of them have been cut down, but a lot of the landowners, they will replant the longleaf pine, but most of the, I guess, if ones that's planting new crops for pine, they go with the loblolly now because it, 20 years you can go in there and clear cut. But oftentimes, like this time of the year when we come home from work, some people would freak out if they seen all the smoke and everything from what's going on. But those landowners, they'll burn 100, 200 acres in a day. No problem.
if you can do it, I would completely understand that.
Yeah, I remember people used to burn the yards off, their fields, everything when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But you're saying that once it gets to the canopy, there's nothing stopping it anyway.
Well, if you got the hanging stuff, like I imagine y'all have them lower firs and things like that. With our longleaf pines and loblolly, whenever they get up and mature, the closest limb that you have can easily be 25 foot off the ground before you get to any limbs. But we still have oaks and things like that and a bunch of underbrush. But that's the main thing that the landowners are doing, is cutting out a bunch of the thicket cars.
Boy, I
under-
completely understand that. I really do. They actually do control burns in some sections of Carlos Avery, the Wildlife Center. And basically where there's a lot of oak there. There isn't that much pine because it's the water table's up so high. Hey, Lisa. But they do burn there, Tim. And they're burning off the lower grass. In fact, we have they've made an oak savanna, restored an oak savanna north of here by about, I think, 6 miles. And we have buffalo there. The University of Minnesota puts buffalo up there. So just all sorts of crazy stuff. There is one pine up in Alaska. I think it's a jack pine. Dave might correct me on this. But you have to have a fire for those things to reproduce. And what happens is those trees will burn up, and then the pine cones explode, and they go like, I don't know, 100 yards in the air and travel all over the place. That's how those things actually reproduce, is through fire.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, DC said yeah on that one.
Yeah, they're 300%. They only release the seed when they get hot. Yeah, they actually explode. And there's Shane. So anyways, what else you guys what else you guys up to?
I'm fighting bees.
Yeah. Have you guys you've noticed Triton in the chat, live chat on some of the shows? It's just Triton. His name is Wayne. He actually lives about 25 minutes to the west of me, and he's doing a really interesting thing with his queens. He takes queens that have gone through 2 winters, and those are the ones that he's grafting on. So he's trying to make more of a Minnesota hardy queen. And
Oh, wow.
it's really interesting. Yeah, I'm actually going to buy 6 nukes for him because I want to redo the genetics in my yard here. But I thought that was kind of clever. If you guys ever want to see his channel, it's if you do a search on Triton and then Honey. So wonderful, nice guy. But I thought that was really interesting. He's, I think he has a lot of Caucasian stock in there too. But that's what he's going for. If it overwinters 2 years, he figures that's a hardy queen, and that's what he grafts off of. And Russell Koopman is going to get some of his queens this year too, God willing. So
Well,
you gotta
that's not a
requeen
bad
all your-
idea. Go ahead.
You got to requeen all yours, Mike?
yeah.
You just
I do
pinch
have
them-
some
pinch them
genetic
all off?
stock. I do have some genetic stock from another Minnesota. It's called Bolton Bees, and they're just east of me, and they have a reputation for doing a lot of the freeze test and whatnot. And that hive had my second lowest mite count over the summer. I had a Saskatchewan Saskatraz that had a count of 2, and then the Bolton was 3. I should have done multiple washes, but that Bolton one, I did. We raised a whole bunch of queens off of that thing, so from swarm cells. So
I did 1 oxalic acid treatment on 5 hives out of 16. And the ones that I did the treatment on compared to the others, the other, 10, they all had the same die-out rate. I don't know. It might be areas, but I did mite washes on a couple. You saw them on the lives. There was maybe 6. But
yeah.
I don't
So
know.
what was your treatment after you pulled the honey supers?
Nothing. I did nothing on all the 10 left. None of them. I only treated when I had that zombie bees episode. That's the only
Yeah.
time I treated the whole year.
Okay.
1 time. And I hadn't
All
seen
right.
many, so I was like, I'm not doing anymore.
Yeah, we got lucky enough. There was a spot of like 50 degrees in January, and I actually had a week there, and I hit him twice with the oxalic. And Russell and I were talking this morning. Russell Koopman and I were talking this morning about Charlie's losses, and I think it was 3 or 4 winters ago. I hit some nukes and 6-frame nukes. Really, really, they were just busting at the seams. Beautiful carniolin stockage. I just loved them. but they died off. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought, I don't know about this really heavy treatment for mites in my area, mind you, late in the fall, because you don't. And Russell brought this up. The bees aren't really moving the oxalic around all that much, so. And those bees didn't have a mite in them, and they died off, and it was heartbreaking. And a bunch of the hives that I have here in the backyard of the cabin, the same thing. And Russell brought up, he said he's never seen a study about using really heavy doses of oxalic, and I'm talking about like 3 to 4 grams per super in the fall, and how that affects the bees going through the winter. And we were just speculating that maybe that was something that happened with Charlie's. We got to remember him in our prayers. His ego is just shot to hell. He lost half his bees. He's got such a great reputation, and the only thing we can think of is, and he didn't explain how old the queens were, and he didn't really want to talk about it. So that's going to be interesting to see what comes out. But that's bringing us around to the possibility of heavy oxalic at the wrong time of the year might actually deter the hive or be adverse to the hive. And I actually wondered about that. I was going through my notes, and that was the one question mark I had.
Can you overdose?
Okay.
It's just something we were talking about earlier today.
Really? Oh, do tell, please. Sorry, I missed it.
We were personally talking on the phone, and it was about, we were talking about, the VHS queens and stuff like that, because Corey was on last night on live with Charlie, and I'm like, I started paying attention. I sort of adding up in my mind that, whether you treat, certain people will get certain losses, a certain percentage of losses, and then some people who won't treat will get the same amount of losses, and sometimes less than you do if you treat. And we're sitting there we're talking about that, how many chemicals we pump into people, our food, we get chemicals pumped into us. But I'm not saying don't treat. I'm not saying, to treat.
No.
It's just that you start looking at the numbers. It's like, I've done a few treatments here and there. I've been spotty with it. I haven't been religious with it. I've been spotty.
Yeah.
And I haven't lost any bees to death. Actually, I've probably done less treating a lot less than I probably should have. I popped my hive open and I got drone brood there. I looked through all that drone brood, and there's not a single mite one on any of them. And I'm like, that's not an ultimate.
No.
You got
keep going.
But it's a form of it.
Yeah.
And you go through it. You go through that, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I said, are we putting ourselves at a disadvantage by continually treating the bee, putting them at a disadvantage, or if we don't treat, are we truly neglecting them? Because if you find a happy medium in there someplace, there should be where you have a sustainability. You're not getting 20, 30% loss, 50% loss.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll get those numbers from people who treat and who don't treat. On average, that's about what you're going to get on most people. For most people,
I think it was Harrison, the one that hanging out with Dave, the DC's bees. Is that Harrison?
Yeah.
I was reading watching some of his videos, and he was talking about keeping his colonies up to like 8 frames big in order to get through winter. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? He also made another video where when you keep helping this hive along, when you equalize the ones that are not the strongest, I think that's what happened to me, because I was helping a couple of these that weren't doing so good, and I kept a couple of frames, kept them going. And then winter comes along, you can't keep doing that, and the true thing comes out. It's like they are doomed. Why did you waste all your time on them? And I'm like, I wonder if that's what happened with those couple. They were prone to die no matter what you did. You kept helping them. You put heated covers on them. You put sugar on them. You did everything. there's nothing you could do with them. They just were dying. Don't know why.
Yeah. Who's the guy that got Bob Vinny to start making videos? He was a professor in Wisconsin. Yeah, he was very famous for saying, "Don't mess with dicks. Don't waste your time with dicks." Dinks.
And I have 3 hives that are going gun-ho, and it's the same ones that were last year. They're doing it again. They're going gun-ho. They made it through winter, and I'm starting to take frames to help others. And I'm like, am I still doing this?
Yeah, I honestly, I'd probably I had a couple hives that I should have shook out, let them go into the other ones. That's it, and rather than doing frame equalization, which I did too, Frank, actually I wasn't able to do that after my surgeries. And yeah, what's Larry Moore here? I treat with the wrong stuff for my climate, and it was disheartening. I thought I was doing the right thing. I lost 16 hives. And Jerome says, Jerome, I only treat with OA. It varies so much from what is your region. I cannot have mites locked in our hives here for like 5 months without them having almost 0 mites, because the mites will decimate the fat in the nurse bees, and when they start to brood up, they don't have anything to feed the larvae and they starve out. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's like certain areas just can't handle certain pests.
Okay, you're in Alabama. Okay.
Yeah, Tim brought up a point though too, that it seems like in the South we don't have the issue with mites as bad as even up north. And I was sort of
beetles,
contributing.
Yeah.
From what I've been watching with folks and picking up throughout the last couple of years, listening to everybody around the country, because we all in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
And the further north, the conversation Ed and I was having, it seems like from my observation, the further north you get, the worse the mite issue is for people. Now, I'm not saying we don't have mites, because we have seen mites on drones that the bees will drag out and just dump on the ground, that kind of thing. But far as a total collapse of a colony due to a mite infestation, thank goodness we haven't seen that. But one of the questions I'll get on, Ed was probably ready to hang up on me with all the stuff I was driving at him. But
keep going. I want to hear this one.
But I mean, there's several questions. I have a lot of questions on that. One reason is, no mites aren't they're not real high priority on our list. Everybody that knows us and watches us, they know it's the hive beetle, but we're not going to go there right now.
Yeah.
But on the mite part, one of the concerns I was talking to Ed about, I was like, this is just me thinking outside the box on some things. Whenever you do an OA treatment, you do that OA vapor. All right. What do you have to do in order to do that treatment as a person to protect yourself? You have to put on some type of ventilated mask, so you do not breathe that into your respiratory system.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody knows the science and can help me understand better on this end, please do. But that same chemical that we have to put a mask on for, so we don't create some type of chronic lung issue, are we not doing that to the bees at the same time? You're blowing that in.
Yeah. So they do it in a different fashion, and I don't know if it's more of a gas osmosis, so it would be filtered out on the. Yeah, exactly, Jerome.
I like to relate it to like the sugar. We can't eat that sugar. We die of diabetes, but the bees sure do. They eat that like a heartbeat, and it works fine. So sometimes it's a species that can handle certain things different than we do, and that might be it. I'm not sure, but
But is it
Yeah.
the
people
Because
people tell me all the time I shouldn't be feed my bees sugar because I'm going to give them diabetes. And I'm like,
well, I mean, we know if we eat, I'm just going to go off the wall. If we eat 10 cups of sugar a day, all right, okay, you can go on and bank. Diabetes is right down the road. But if you eat a teaspoon of sugar a day or put it in your coffee daily, the small amounts isn't going to give you the effect as a larger amount
So
would.
two totally different animals. There's just absolutely no comparison.
So are they doing that the same way far as I'm going to double the dose on this oxalic acid and really give it to them? Are the double doses is what's are you creating the colony collapse by giving them these double doses, but yet you're thinking it's the mites?
Well, okay. So one thing that that Russell brought up is that towards the end of the year, if when you gas them really good, yeah, thanks, Lisa. They respire through the exoskeleton. Yeah, exactly. The bees in the summer, when you blow OA in there, they fan like crazy, and as they're shutting down in the fall, they're not circulating and removing and moving around all that cloud. You got to remember about a 2-gram dose, I think, is equal to about two. It will displace about two cubic feet of air. So, yeah, if they're not able to circulate, if they don't have a high enough population, we don't know. By the way, I'm going to get to something here. Shane was talking about, if I understood you right, you're talking about different sugars and how that affects the bees overwintering. In Minnesota and the northern climates, I do not want to leave any of the regular honey in there. I mean, if I can replace it all with sucrose honey, sugar syrup honey. But here's why. The sucrose honey, or as we call it up here, funny honey, has got 2 to 4 times the amount of peroxide in it. So as they're consuming that, they're cleaning their guts out. So the fellow who with the painted fingernails that Bob Binney's talked to at the University of Georgia, he's a bald-headed guy. He's more of a statistician, but he was talking about how much more peroxide sucrose honey has than the regular honey. So just throwing that up in the air. I just had to mention that for Shane. So sorry to go down another rabbit hole there.
No, go ahead. The oxalic. Was you fixing to head down a road with on the oxalic and the vapor? Mike,
What about it?
I thought you was going to say something prior to that about the oxalic acid and the vapor and doing
it gets absorbed through their Lisa pointed out here that it gets absorbed through their exoskeleton and whatnot. You can see bees breathing if you look at them really good, but
so you're saying if you heavy dose them in the winter, they don't disperse it as much, so it may settle and collect on things and stay there longer.
Yeah, and it might be sitting in their food source, or we don't know. And Russell brought that point up, and it was spot on. Come here, babe.
Okay.
Their concern was us consuming or using the honey and the wax. All that treatment.
Yeah. You can go up. But if there's just
So
too
it's
much,
time to take a hive apart in the winter and do some tests in the summer and see honey levels, bee levels, surface, contact, what they feel like they have, and
That's what the bees are
have some answers.
as a storage from natural resources. My thing is more along the lines of what the bees had going into the winter. Oh, into the winter as stores from natural resources. Yeah. Shane, you're absolutely right. So when it all came down to it, Russell said that sounds like a good project for a grad student to try and follow through with. And he's right. And I also thought that maybe writing to Bob Binney, Fred Dunn, because Fred Dunn won't have the answer, but he likes digging. And there was one other person to throw it at. apart in March and August, 7 days, 3 times. Late treatments, 6 treatments, 4 days apart. Yeah. Jerome, how much are you hitting them with? How many grams per super? Throw that up there and bring it in. We don't know, Tim, is what it kind of comes down to. You know, on the other hand, in the spring, I like to hit mine with Formic. 4 grams? Okay, yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good and heavy. But I only do 1 pad at a time over a 20-day period, and I'm not really affecting the brood buildup all that much. And it's not penetrating the wax, but it is giving a continuous release because OA lasts for, I forget what it is. What Randy Eller was talking about. It's like a day or two, and then it loses its effectiveness. So I think when it all comes around to it, we haven't quite figured out how to dial in the organic acids across, because, you know, better living through chemicals. That's what I grew up with, like DuPont and Dow and whatnot. But we're finding out more and more that the organic acids are really pretty crazy.
I'm still waiting for them to do lasers like they do in the recycling, where they shoot the little pieces and they separate the plastics and the glass as it goes down the conveyor belt. You put it on the entrance of your hive for a day. Boop, 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 knocks the mites off. You put on the next hive, do that on that day. Doop, 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 as they come in and out.
I think it was in Australia. I believe that's where it was. The guys came up with the stuff that they were doing something similar to that, except it was just to count the mites on the bees as they were coming in.
Yep.
So,
Even puffs of air. I don't care what you use, you know?
Yeah. You could actually do that. I actually started working with lasers in, oh dear Lord, 1975. And the technology as far as like aiming and whatnot is pretty insane. Yeah, they could. We're
going crazy with this stuff.
Yeah.
You just have them going single file in and out. Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah, you could have them go down a tube so they're lined up, you know. Yep. But yeah, that's just this year I did take all the honey from the spring, summer off of my hives and allowed them only to have fall honey. And they seem to have done as well as that. Yeah, Shane, the problem with fall honey here is that it's got a lot more minerals in it. The fall honey always has more flavor to it. And where you are, that's just fine. But up here, where the bees can't fly out and poop, that's a real problem for me. If the bees, that's the other thing about using sucrose honey to feed on. It has less solids in it. Bob Binney calls it ash, but you know, it's I always kind of akin it to Jeff Foxworthy chili jokes. It was pretty mounded up there with get up on that space shuttle. Woo-hoo! We have the chili. Oh, that was not good. So
yeah, I was watching one of Harrison's videos. He did a nuke inside of a oh man, what do they call it? Greenhouse. Nice greenhouse. I'm thinking, why he had the pollen, he had the food station, they were flying. I said, this is heaven. He even had flowers in there. I said, why didn't that work?
Oh,
why didn't that work?
No idea. Shane is in Ontario. Thank you. I completely forgot where you were.
Because I've also heard that people don't use greenhouses. They don't do honeybees. They always use the other ones, the tube ones.
In Israel, they use bumblebees. There's a specific bumblebee that they keep in the greenhouses to pollinate their fruits with. So
they don't use the honeybee for some reason.
Yeah, they found the bumblebees were much better at pollinating in the greenhouses.
You mean diversified, maybe?
The what?
They're more diversified in the different flowers that they go to. Like honeybees will be only one particular flower and they skip everybody else. Maybe that's why.
I don't know. It's the greenhouses that I was looking in Israel where they were doing that. They were just growing strictly tomatoes. I don't know. I think maybe it's just because their bodies are a little bit more round and they've got more hairs on them. That could be it. So they have incidental pollination going on, just brushing from their bodies. That kind of makes sense. I don't know. Used to be a large leaf cutter in Mason Bee Pollination Service. Oh, no kidding. Mason Bee Pollination Services in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a little tube you buy.
I bet they're not producing honey, Rodney. Now more bumblebees and blue bottle flies. Honeybees don't pollinate tomatoes. Yeah, thank you, Spanky. Yeah, Canada has leaf cutters here still. I'm embarrassed to say this. I can't even remember what a leaf cutter looks like.
Spanky, don't you have a whole bunch where you put out the little houses, if you will, for mason bees?
I thought they looked like a little bit bigger than a bumblebee.
For all you guys, here's a question. I had people complaining that I'm doing honeybees because they're not native. They said, why don't I help the native bees and take care of them by, like we do honeybees, take care of and have hives set up for natives. Has anybody ever done that for native bees?
We've never set up for any native bees, but I have watched several videos of people building, say, like a 3x3 box and cutting little pieces of bamboo or a hollowed out stick.
Yeah.
Lay them in there and make a big old, I guess, hive or community for those solitary bees to get in. And
yeah, actually, I've been wanting to do that for several years. I just haven't done it. They'll take sections of bamboo and cut them up and line them up. In fact, all of the greenhouses here sell those bee boxes or whatever they are.
So are native bees all tube ones? Is that the only kind there are, or do they do something else?
I have no idea. I think in Minnesota alone, I think we've got like 140 varieties of pollinators. So I don't.
So we probably don't even know where they live or nest or how they live, probably.
Yeah. So we have a black bee here that it looks like a black honeybee. In fact, if you go on my, I think the initial picture I have on my channel is one of those bees walking across a drone frame. And I've actually put swarm traps next to my plum trees. My bees will not touch plum trees. They just don't because they found something else. But those black bees will be all over the place. And I've been trying to, and those might actually nest in the ground here. So
almost like a yellow jacket.
Yeah, yellow jacket or the ground wasp. Yeah.
So that they might even winter all over like they do, where just the mom lives and everybody else dies off.
It could very well be. It's actually, this is funny you should mention that because one of my neighbors here has a really nice hibiscus tree. I've got to film this. I have some black bees that look like honeybees that mess with my bees. Oh, okay. Thank you, Jeremy. But in the spring, when the hibiscus is in full bloom, it attracts every bumblebee queen in the area. So you can go there and you see these giant bumblebees there. And I'm like, no, those are all queens. And they're there to, they feed on those things and then they go set up their nests. It's a beautiful sight. It's crazy. These giant flowers and these giant bumblebees.
So they've been pollinated, fertilized all winter and they're just waiting for summer to have a baby.
Yeah, I don't really know how a bumblebees overwinter. I imagine they're in the ground.
It's just that one bee, the whole winter long, and it starts all over. One bee.
Yeah. Yep.
If we could do that with honeybees, we'd be made.
Isn't that the truth?
Just take care of the queen. Be done with it.
It's pretty interesting. I know it don't have anything to do with us over here, but we're talking about like the solitary bees and pollinating on a documentary I've watched. But there's a solitary bee over in, I think it was over in Europe over there somewhere. But what's the red flower they put out every year for the poppy? Okay. That bee depended on that flower, the poppy. But what they would do, they had a burrow in the ground. There was a solitary bee. But once that poppy flower got mature, they would go and cut a little bit of piece of that flower leaf
Petal.
the petal off that flower and take it back and put it around their entrance. So you would see little red dots.
They would just like line the top of the entrance with that flower petal.
But
No
it had
kidding. That
something,
makes sense.
it had something to do with them. It's something they needed
Mhm.
in order to, continue the life cycle on things.
Okay.
But
Wow.
It was really pretty.
It sounds beautiful. Wow. I'm I'm glad my granddaughters aren't here because they'd be out putting red petals in front of all my beehives just because Grandpa looks pretty.
Yeah.
In all fairness. Yeah, the queens only survive, Rodney. Yeah, Rodney pointed that one out. Yeah. I actually have been wanting to make some not worried about the wind and predators knocking the tubes out on the ground. Oh, okay. Thanks, Banky. Yeah, I've actually been wanting to put some bumblebee nests back in my hosta garden there, and they're ground nests. You kind of take a pot, put upside down, and put a tube leading to it, and so on. You can put fiberglass.
So they make the different layers like the yellow jackets.
I don't know. No. Okay, so I've only been in one bumblebee nest in my life, and I can't remember if I saw young in there or not. They were up in my attic. They built a wonderful nest in my fiberglass.
Oh,
And-
Is it like a paper nest or wax?
I don't remember. No, they were just crawling around inside the fiberglass fibers, and they'd hollowed out an area. And no, I
So
can't.
they kind of do like a bird. They just make a nest.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I don't remember where the eggs or the brood were. I don't even know if I saw that. That's something we can look up here. There's somebody's got to have filmed a bumblebee nest, right? So,
Hell yeah.
yeah. So
the one scene, it kind of looks like a paper wasp nest, not like the yellow jacket with tears.
I think I have kind of a yeah.
Paper wasp.
Yeah. By the way, and kind of a sideways note here, going off of what Rodney was talking about, every fall I put out plates of sugar on my front deck and just pour water on them. And that attracts all these doggone big bald-faced hornets and whatnot. And some of the, or wasp or whatever anyways, they actually will form a circle around with all their heads towards the center. Similar to what drones do when they're trying not to get kicked out. So it might be a protective thing, but those are the queens. So what I do is I take a long stick as I'm walking around the deck and I squash those things on that sugar plate, and I've almost eliminated those nasty things up here. Pretty interesting because I'm wiping out the majority of the queens that are in the area because they all come to this sugar place. Is it a good idea to let them all out? I have no idea. Hey, Philip. But yeah, the queen situation though, it's kind of like a bird's nest mixed in with queen cells and a ball. Actually, now that you and Tim have mentioned that, I'm kind of recollecting something being a ball in that fiberglass. Seriously, look into
Yeah, I think I remember little balls of honey or something that they store. Instead of cells, they're little balls of honey.
Yeah, you'd think they'd store. Well, I don't know if they live hand to mouth or what the deal is. I know one thing that bumblebees, the ones I have here, absolutely love are garlic chives. They'll set up a stem that's about 2 feet tall, and those flowers last for a month, and the bumblebees will be all over those things. It's we have them around the back deck here. It's like the entire, and we just sit out there, and have a beverage and watch the bumblebees on those things. It's just amazing how much
So they start flowering to the bottom. They keep the flowers keep working their way up the stem as they grow.
No, it throws up a stem. It eventually gets 2 feet tall, and then the flower opens. It's yeah, I don't have a handy picture here right now, but they're beautiful.
Like the yucca,
and by
like
the
a
way,
yucca plant does.
what's that?
Like the yucca.
I have no idea what the yucca does, and I don't know if you're just trying to make yucks.
It's a real
Everybody that knows Frank gets that one right away. So
you don't want to get in. I tell you that.
There's some nasty little boogers.
Oh, you have them?
what are they
Yeah,
like?
down here?
They're aggressive.
They are.
Yeah.
What are they?
Every little piece of root that goes out becomes another one, and you can't stop them once they go.
Oh, it's a root. Root spread.
And you break it off, and you leave a little piece, and now all of a sudden you got a whole bunch more.
Wisteria does the same thing.
And that blasted privet.
So it transmits through the rhizomes. Yeah. We have one of our church elders from Australia. He lives maybe about a mile or two south of me here now. And he decided to grow horseradish. And he could not get rid of it. He couldn't. And at one point, he actually dug a hole 3 feet down. He said the root was still that big. And I think he tried burning it up, and that's how he finally got rid of it. But the horseradish was all over the place. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I wish I'd known that. I would have come over there and harvested every single day.
I remember grinding that by hand. That was the great days. Your eyes would be watering.
Oh man, yeah. They also used to call that the mandrake root because they believe it grew underneath guys that were hung, and when guys hung they would expel their last amount. And if you looked at the horseradish root, it almost looked like a man. It was kind of interesting. So whenever they saw somebody hung, they'd start digging underneath there looking for this root. One of those, but that was also in medieval Europe where people were freaking starving. I mean, it was insane how brutal that was.
You're talking about getting into bad plants like them yucca. Y'all know what a century plant is?
A century?
It's a giant aloe vera plant.
Yeah.
With little like cactus-like spines.
Okay.
I mean, these things get.
Yeah, blue agave.
You got one, Ed?
I've seen them. They grow that spire once every 100 years.
Yep, that shoot up out of it. But
Tim did a backflip.
Yes.
One day.
There was a automobile accident, and we had to call the helicopter. Well,
yeah.
It was my position on that call to direct the helicopter in and land them safely in a field. Well, as I'm going out into this field,
He ain't watching where he's going. He's watching that chopper.
I sure wasn't. Yeah, I was fully concentrated on that chopper, and I'm giving them hand signals, come in this way, go away from the power line, so on and so forth. Well, as I'm doing that, I'm backing up so the chopper can come in.
Yeah.
And be safe, and I can be away as well. I don't know how hard the pilots and co-pilots laugh, but as I'm walking backwards directing that chopper, I fell right into the center of one of them century plants. And y'all, let me tell you what, that joker tore my tail up. It was worse trying to get out of the thing than it was that
Oh no.
I was in the car with that patient while he's doing it, and I seen it out of the corner of my eye, and it was all I could do not to bust out laughing in that car.
Oh. And don't they stink?
I don't know. They sting. I know that.
Yeah.
Well, you found that out for certain. Yeah. Hey, JC3G. I forgot what your name is there. Or J3GS. Nice to see you.
Go call them Jags.
That doesn't sound very comfortable there, Tim. Did you at least lay on the ground long enough for someone to take a picture of you?
Well, I was hoping nobody seen what had happened. We had the highway blocked off, but I know everybody that was stopped.
Everybody's seen that backflip.
Then you got an aerial.
Oh man, you poor guy.
And yeah, it was an embarrassing moment. I'll say that. That's
At least he did have his turnout pants on though, so he was protected on his legs at least. But
my back and arms was tore up.
Oh man.
It got you good.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Say, Spanky, he's apparently got some inner. I got to check out your channel there and look at those. Mason bees harvesting clay for chamber buildings. Yeah, I've seen those in Indiana, and I just sit and watch those things. They're really, thank you. I will go and look at that. Thank you, Spanky. That looks. But Frank, to your point about to back the thing up, when your neighbors are talking about, well, you should be helping the native bees, and I completely get that. But the sad truth about that is there are honeybees compete with them, for food sources. But the other part is that these people that are all pushing the man-made global warming, climate change, or whatever the hell they're calling it now. The thing that they're not talking about at all is the chemicals and the forever chemicals that they have on the ground. Now, in 1992, a professor of karst underwater studies at the U, I had a chance to meet him, and he was talking about 60% of the groundwater in Iowa was contaminated with artificial nitrates. 60%. So that's just crazy.
That's water and everything for folks.
That's the groundwater. So it's penetrating down
I know
there.
I know when they stopped us from the Swedish sponges because they were afraid of fire retardants. I looked up fire retardants and found out a whole bunch of things that they put in there. They put it in your drapes, they put it in your car fabric, they put it in your carpet,
that shit.
and
Yeah,
they don't
3M
go
over
away.
here.
They can't. That foam that you use as a fire retardant for fire depression,
Yeah.
it's in there, and it don't go away. And I'm like, oh my goodness! Don't even tell me.
Yeah, 3M. They decided to bury a bunch of those barrels. 3M's headquarters is to my east here, and they destroyed the entire aquifer. And they're never going to get all those chemicals out. So, Danette, how you doing there? Yeah. So, it's always interesting to run into somebody that they're all talking about, climate change. And I'm like going, do you have any idea at all what the older Dryas is? Do you know what the younger Dryas is? And corn production can get really screwed up if you do not have enough CO2 in a cornfield. Russ Koopman explained this to me. And you're in a drought, the pores on the leaves try to open up to suck in more CO2. Well, when it opens up so far, then it starts losing its own moisture. And during a drought, a low CO2 can, mess with a corn crop really good. We had a drought here, but there was a high enough CO2 level, and the crop was still good. So, but they're not talking about the chemicals, and
the other one was that microplastic they talk about, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, when we do our vinyl siding now, and you cut it and you have all these little pieces you're cutting.
Yeah,
it's not like sawdust where it's decomposing. It's in your ground somewhere. I'm thinking, wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, microplastic particles. I think Elon Musk was talking about that the average person has enough plastic in their body at one point to about the displacement of a credit card. And yeah, I've gotten completely away from using plastic for anything that I put in there.
Well, Frank, did you see the video where the fella invented, I think he was out in California or somewhere, but invented some kind of machine where it pulls in the air, and at the other end, yeah, it filters the microplastic, like you was talking about the lasers shooting pieces off. Well, as the air goes through this machine, it is collecting the microplastic that's in the air and putting all this into a bin. And what this dude was collecting was pretty much unbelievable.
Really?
Wow.
What
That's
we're breathing
frightening.
in.
Oh, it was. It was terrifying.
I just Dave, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be arguing. I just call mostly bull on honeybees hurting native pollen. It really depends upon the density. If an area is completely flooded with honeybees, That's one thing. But like I was talking though, that I mean, my honeybees won't touch my plum trees, but all the native pollinators will. So they'll compete in some areas and not in others. And I've heard that talked about by several people, and I've never seen the stats on that. In all fairness, so yeah, so it's really interesting. They do compete, but they also pass on pathogens. Yeah. Okay. So if you got, well, yeah, but that's the welcome to the insect world. They're going to share pathogens from ones, if they're all landing on the same flower. It's been that way for millions of years, but
Yep.
oh, that's another one of my favorite little rants here. They say, well, climate change is going to destroy the honeybees. The honeybees, pollinate all of our food. Honeybees have been around for at least 65 million years. You think they've gone through a couple climate changes? Blow out your bum hole.
And they only pollinate
still wanna know
1/3 of
how they
our
got 'em
food.
I still want to know how they got them on the ark.
Okay.
Skeet.
Actually, I would love to hear what Julie Von Vett's got to say about that. She's got an author, a book about. She got 4 books out. That's Vince's wife. In fact, her book is the national biology book of the nation of Fiji. So even the Muslim schools there carry it. I got to ask about that. That's really.
I know there's an entire channel about the Noah effect and the ark and how it proves everything, and they just study it throughout. It's what they use to prove God, to prove everything. Just the Noah effect.
Yeah. So oddly enough, I bet this was 2 or 3 years ago. I ran into a back tracing genetics study, and it was out of Great Britain. And these guys they took I think it was 90% of the species that they had genetics recorded on. They all seem to originate back to about 90,000 years ago. It's just all of a sudden 90,000 years ago, all of a sudden all these new species just appeared out of nowhere. And
it's almost like God broke the little code and they just started mutating to different. Instead of having one dog, you have all these different types of dogs, and all of a sudden you have all these different types of cows. And it's like, all right.
Right. The thing was that apparently the genetics hadn't mutated; they just suddenly appeared. But I'm foggy on that. I really am. You certainly could be right.
Yeah, I've heard that theory.
On that one, of how it just suddenly appeared. I believe the good Lord has set everything into motion from the beginning. This is just me and mine, but
no,
ours and ours, I guess. But I don't think it just all of a sudden we had a second big bang of a critter popping up. Whenever the good Lord set everything into motion, as far as plants, animals.
But I mean, we don't
everything.
believe in the first Big Bang either.
No.
So.
But I think everything has carried on, but yet, like the dogs, okay, a dog is a dog, but you have different colored dogs.
Yeah.
So there's no denying that there's different species of dogs. But I don't think that everything has been sitting dormant for X amount of years. Then all of a sudden, hey, look, today is the day we hatch.
Yeah.
I believe everything has just continuously been in motion, and genetics have gotten with different genetics. Just the same thing as the beekeeping world. A lot
Probably
of
almost like the cancer. We got this cancer that all of a sudden comes out of our bodies all different ways, and it's like the Lord released the control. It's like like He had it sitting there. And He says, "I'm letting this now do its thing," and now all of a sudden you've got lung cancer, you got kidney. They're not even the same.
Well, a lot of that goes back to what we're doing to ourselves, the contamination of water, what we're ingesting in foods, genetically modified foods.
Yeah, girl,
That's
or
really
cancer
scary.
cells in us, and
Yep.
something environmental triggers it, and it becomes active.
Yeah, whenever you go try to change what God has already created, you're going to have problems
Yeah,
because God made it perfect whenever He set it into motion. No matter
Yeah.
what it was the food or anything like that. But whenever man gets involved and starts tinkering with stuff, thinking he's going to make something better, then that's where we get into, well, we're starting to see the bad side of things that we didn't expect,
Yeah.
1,000 years
Um,
ago.
I picture it like when they had that incident in the Bible where they poured water on the altar, and the other ones are dancing around it, praying to their God, and all of a sudden God says, "Boom!" It ignites, and it's like he took the rule of get a part of oxygen and hydrogen and the water rules and said, "I'm turning it off for a moment." But boom!
Well, God mocking them. You're mocking me,
so I'm
worshiping
show
another
you.
God that you created.
Yep.
So God says very clear in the Bible, whenever they're building all these statues of different gods and goddesses, even God is explaining in the Bible, he's saying, tell your gods to explain the past, have them explain the future, tell me what's going on. What he's doing, he's mocking the human race because their gods cannot do what our God, the Father, has set into place.
Like we do, we make a beehive with one half, and we take the other and make our fireplace go.
Yeah, it's man
yeah.
playing God, and it's not working, and we're seeing the results of it.
It's frightening, and they're even talking about treating all the seeds with an mRNA. So they're trying to get it into all of us, and it's very, very
mRNA starts going into our DNA, which will supposedly restructure our DNA. I do not like that one bit.
No, it's very, very frightening.
Does anybody know if that bee vaccine that they're given, does that keep going from generation to generation, or does it die off?
If I remember right,
because some people are saying that might be a genetic thing that they're hiding.
I think that Umberto was talking about limitations and degradation according to, because what they do is actually feed it to the nurse bees, and the nurse bees feed it to the queen. And so,
as long as the queen's alive, that vaccine works. As long as the queen
thank
is alive.
you, Ed. Yeah, and when the queen dies, that's it. So, if I'm remembering it right, and I think you're on there, Ed. But
and once you do a retreatment, when a new queen's in the hive, it starts over again. The nurse bees keep feeding it back to the queen and keep her going.
Yeah. It's awfully doggone frightening. I don't know. It's really crazy. Kind of a to the Noah thing. So Julie and Vince were at the Ark. Where's that?
Arkansas? No, I don't know.
Seems like it. Yeah, Frank, I can always count on you. Anyways, so Vince is walking through there, and he has done timber frame construction for, I think, 40 or 45 years. And it was really interesting to hear his take on the way that they had constructed things. It was just incidental. Anyways, he was explaining why the timbers were one way or another. And my great-grandparents were post and beam barn builders. So just I really want to go see that thing. I think they do make some really interesting leaps, but the concept is there. And for crying out loud, I know that there's so many flood stories from Gilgamesh to some of the Yukon Indian tribes. To me, it's never been, was there a great flood? It's been, how many floods have there been? You get a big glacial thing. We know that. Oh, thank you, Lisa, in Kentucky. I couldn't remember. That's embarrassing. But yeah, if I mean, for crying out loud, at one point the planet was completely frozen over. That was it, you know. So, and we know that the oceans were down, 400 feet prior to the younger Dryas, and maybe the older Dryas too. And here's something to think about. This will really mess with your brain pans. If you look at the way people live around water, it's like 90% of the population lives around water, like in the oceans and whatnot. So all of a sudden, if you raise the ocean over a period of like 10 years or 8 years or 6 years, I forget, and it wipes out 90% of the known civilizations, when people are looking for like the oldest known civilizations, it's probably all underwater, Yeah, exactly. So it's just
Well, they keep moving the plates and stuff, and they have mountains where there used to be valleys. That totally messes it up too.
yeah.
When they
So
got oceans up in the mountains, I'm like, ocean rocks and fossils. It's like,
yeah. It's crazy. You can take anything from the Bimini Road to whatever, and you look at the city that's 1 mile down that I think it's around Cuba. A Russian oceanographer actually ran into it, and it's down a mile. Well, you're talking about plate tectonics and the surface going up and down. So yeah, it's just there's so much that we don't know about our own history. We have no idea how long humans have been on the planet or how many different breeds of humans there are. We literally don't know.
I was watching some old YouTubes, and they're talking about how they were going to go down, the Antarctics and stuff that nobody's ever been there. No women have never been there. And I'm like, wow, it was just a couple of days ago they did that.
Well, for crying out loud, they found the remnants of campfires in the mountains in the Antarctic. So go screw all that folk. It's we don't know. We just don't know. It's just amazing. Graham Hancock. Oh, by the way, if you ever get a chance, as long as staying with the Bible here, if you ever get a chance, pick up Graham Hancock's first book. It was called The Sign and the Seal. It's about his hunt for the Ark of the Covenant. And he was a photographer for Haile Selassie in Ethiopia. And there is some really, really, really strong evidence that it's in Axum, Ethiopia. And it's been there for a long time. It was apparently possibly and yeah, you really, and he had references he has so many references in there. It's incredibly well researched. The Ark, it looks like it might have been left before that first sacking by Babylon or whatever, and ended up in an island in Lake Tana, the headwaters of the Nile. And the monks there, they still, documentary in that book. Yeah, he's got that. And I have a friend of mine from Ethiopia, and they have a celebration there on every November 17th and 18th. And that's on my to-do list to go there to Axum for it's called Timcat, where they actually once a year they take the Ark of the Covenant out, and everybody's got their own arks and so on. But if you get a chance, look it up, The Sign and the Seal. I can't tell you how well researched it is.
The true.
I wonder if God would be protecting something like that, like he did the Levites were the only ones that were allowed to carry it. I wonder if that would be something he would like. All right, I'm not going to do that anymore. Anybody that touches it, or would he, if it even exists, would he still be doing that? I would wonder.
Actually, I have an answer for you on that. There's one person that's allowed in the church where it is, and that's it. Nobody else can go in there. And most of the guys that they eventually go blind from glaucoma. It's Axum, Ethiopia. No one else is allowed in that church. Nobody's allowed in the grounds. You can go up and talk to the groundskeeper. He'll come to the gate and talk to you, and so on and so forth. Tim, you started to say something.
You're talking about that church in Ethiopia.
Yeah. Yep. And I apologize. I could look it up right now, but I'll let you guys do that. I can't remember what the name of the church is. I do remember the caretaker's name before the current one. His name was Michael.
And they talk about, rebuilding Jerusalem at some time, and he's going to, and people are actually making all these different articles, getting ready for the rebuilding of Jerusalem. And I'm thinking, if, some people have pre-trib, post-trib, and all that stuff. And I'm like, if it's possible, is he might be protecting all these things for the actual putting together of this temple. The one last shot. Is it possible? That's a fascinating thing. That if that's
Boy, that's a
true.
really good point, Frank. I think you're onto something there. That just makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
And he's going to
Dave.
bring all these things together. It's like, would he do that just to entertain us?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you
To
go,
say,
Dave.
look what I can do.
Yeah. I don't know. Oddly enough, this is historical. When the Italians invaded Ethiopia, the Ethiopians went and got the Ark of the Covenant and marched it out in front of their army. And they destroyed the mechanized, the tanks and whatnot of Italy. You can look that up.
How did they transport the ark? Is my question. How did they physically transport the Ark of the Covenant whenever God Himself says anybody that lays hands on this?
Well,
will
they
die
had, yeah,
immediately?
okay. You remember the construction of the Ark? It was built with the ring holes on the side. So these guys would actually have like 15, 20-foot poles.
Wooden staves.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So they actually fit into the rings on the side of it, and so they weren't carrying the ark. It was being carried on those wood poles or those stays. Yeah. So the ancient settlement were the priests and attendants that went with them. Yeah. Dave's bringing up the island of Lake Tana. So.
Yeah, they believe that tribe believes they're actually descendants of a Jewish tribe as well. That supposedly guard the Ark of the Covenant.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay.
So we got so many stories on people moving the Ark of the Covenant, and what about Ron White?
Ron White, the comedian.
No, Ron White. That he done his own biblical archaeology, and he was one of the fellas that the Turkish government pushed away from the mountain, Mount Ararat.
Oh, that ark. I thought we were still in the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go back to that because Ron.
He did that Ark of the Covenant one too. Yeah.
The study that Ron White done is, I take all this for a grain of salt on any end of it. But I guess since we're on this, there's so many tribes and so many people saying I took the ark and I've got it here and all this. But Ron White, there's videos that he's done on all this, but under Golgotha. All right. That's where he had photo evidence. Now, I'm take it with a grain of salt. Photo evidence of that's where the ark is. He had found pictures. He had taken pictures of it, and it took him 18 dozen years to find it. But his study and research was whenever Christ was crucified on Golgotha. All right, that it was right up underneath the crucifixion of Christ. And that's where he believes. I don't, because I don't know where it's at. Only God will reveal that in time, in my opinion. But he believes, and the photo evidence that he has or had of it, he ended up dying some years back. But that's pretty well where he
So he's
claimed to
talking
have
about
found
the Ark of the Covenant
Ark of
being
the Covenant.
underneath Golgotha.
Yes. Because, and part of that, there's a video on all this, and like I say, everybody has their own beliefs and all that. But while he was tunneling up under Golgotha and got into the area where he believes the picture that he took is the actual ark, is where they had found dried blood. All right. The dried blood was taken to this forensics guy. And Ron White told the fellas to test it and let's just see. Well, the blood that was tested was dried blood, but yet living blood.
Mhm.
Anybody knows that pretty well soon as blood touches the surface, within a certain amount of time, that's it, it's dead.
Yeah, but
There's
they
no
said
more
there was
life in it.
live DNA.
But
I think the other factor on that was they only found maternal DNA, no paternal DNA in that blood, supposedly.
Yeah.
yes,
Was the other factor.
Boy,
So
I've got to look that up. I really do. That's just
there's a
speaking of
big
blood here.
documentary on all the
Yeah.
things that he done. It goes from the ark of how the Turkish government pushed him away from the mountain, and they did all this field testing. Eventually, got in there, and they found the nails. They found the size of the cubits of this ship that appears to be on top of the mountain. Then it gets into the ark and different other biblical
Okay.
stories.
hey, Spanky.
So,
Just one quick note here. The blood type on the Shroud of Turin is O negative or something like that. And then the Catholics have another shroud. In fact, a friend of mine who's a devout Catholic doesn't even know about this, but the blood type on that is O negative. And
wow.
so it's just so incredibly rare that, yeah, O negative. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thank you. I appreciate you jump. He's pretty well read. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys a lot.
Wow.
It's amazing what one of us that doesn't know someone else can touch on, and that's wonderful. I got to look that Ron White up thing because there was some tunneling around. The Templars were tunneling around the Temple Mount looking for what have you. So I've had 22 years to pass the time. And my dad was a history teacher, and I'm a data analyst, so I appreciate that a lot. I
here's
really
another one I'm probably going to rock the boat with, and I'll get off of it. We're talking about the shroud, and
please.
put it on the right page. That's the shroud that appears to have Christ's face in the
Yeah.
shroud.
Yeah.
Okay. According to Scripture, Christ was so disfigured that nobody could recognize him. How can a man's physical features be seen on a shroud if the Holy Bible tells us that Christ was so disfigured that nobody could even recognize him?
You've brought up a really, really pertinent point. Okay, so the Greek boxers in the Olympics, they would use wooden cuffs or whatever, and there's stories of some of those guys coming back and their families didn't even recognize them. I've seen a fighter once, he got his cheekbone broke off in the ring, and he never looked the same. I've really wondered about that too, Tim. I have. Absolutely. It's that's
Of course, it could have been his resurrection body too that kind of like burned through it.
That's a very pertinent point there. You might have
I would think that that'd be a lot of energy when that happens. Because they talk about, him, when the people saw him, he had their, different look. So
yeah.
But
and almost like a radiation.
I mean, his body laid in that tomb for 3 days. Then he came back to a resurrected body, which was perfect.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you've got one book that says they all recognize him at once, and another one that says they had no idea who he was. So back to disfiguration, and yeah.
Of course, I can't imagine us being grotesque all throughout eternity looking at him. I know he's gonna have scars in the hands, but I can't imagine us being grossed out forever. Is saying, this is saddening. I think he would be. I don't know. I would think he'd want us to be happy and see his good side.
See him in his glory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but the Bible's pretty clear on, yes, it's going to be a glorified, he is going to have a perfect glorified body, but he will also still bear those wounds
that
he endured for us. That's not gonna go away.
I mean, he even told Thomas, look, you know, it's me, but here's the scars and stuff, Bubba. I'm just
Put your
paraphrasing
hand
it,
in there.
but you know, if you're still doubting and all that, here I am. But it's a heavy debate on much of that, and I guess without going into a huge biblical debate tonight and turning it into something that an argument, because I sure don't want it
Oh,
turned
there's
into
no arguments here. There are no arguments here. We're just bouncing stuff
It's
off.
a fascination with how detailed he has gone to try and. I mean, the other alternative is to make us like the angels, and then we, be like hate Satan and just like disown him. He gave us all these choices, and so we can be like amazed and have
Yeah.
and still be in there with him after all that we do.
We will have a glorified body. We're not going to be of the angels. That's a total separate being. The angels are their own setup.
Spanky, I've got to go and look at your videos there. I actually have to go and get ready for church tomorrow, so I'm gonna get off here. I'm so glad that I finally found one of your live chats here, and then we had. I just can't believe you guys were going through Paul, his writings. That's just fantastic. I'm sorry I missed your 2 hours earlier there. Yeah, good night, Shane. And you guys, all of you, have had some really interesting insights. I don't quite understand what Philip was talking about whale tongues, but that kind of scares me for somebody who's in a landlocked area there.
I think he was talking about, we were talking about yucca earlier.
Yeah.
He just playing play on words, yucca, whale tongue, yucca.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
Watch
sense. That's a wonderful connection that Philip always manages to do. So, that's Lisa. That's a question there. So when we go to heaven, will there be mosquitoes? So, anyways, well, God bless you all. Have a blessed coming up here, and it's what is it? Good Friday is next Friday.
I think so. Or
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know next Sunday is Palm Sunday.
No, Sunday week.
Next Sunday.
We should know that off the top of our heads there, but yeah.
I appreciate Mike reading all the comments, because with a cell phone I can't see any of them, and without it I don't see everything that's going on.
I'm trying to keep up, Frank, but
He's getting up better than I am, and I'm looking at all of it on a 55-inch screen.
They call it a whale's tongue, the century plant.
Oh, so that's a legit name.
Put it under your daughter's window. Oh, that's wonderful. That would solve a couple problems.
Companies down here that will actually give you a discount if you plant those or like big rose bushes under your windows.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
To keep burglars down.
They say it's a deterrent.
Yeah.
Keeps the boyfriend away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A 12 gauge will do that too.
I've got 2 of them.
Oh, I had my my 12-year-old stepdaughter. Some guys were coming over, and they're all going to go for a walk, and I was down there with the youngest boy, and from the landing deck flare, they can see down the first level of the basement. We were down there, and I was helping them with their kicks and whatnot. And I said, guys, hang on to the bag for a second. These 2 preteens are up there on the thing, and I kicked the crap out of that bag. I mean, I almost knocked it off the wall. And then I went up and introduced myself. That's all I had to do. Their eyes are about this big, and I'm like, my job is done.
Yeah.
That's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, protect our family. Well, again, God bless you guys. All have a great night, and I'll talk to you hopefully soon.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right.
Well, we all hooked
Doing-
up then.
What you doing, Tim? We ain't got nothing to talk about now, I don't think.
Uh,
Y'all done covered everything tonight.
We went 2 circles. We went back to
Wow.
theology twice.
Wow.
well,
You can't do
I'll-
this on TikTok.
we'll do a video on these. Where we at? On these here, probably next day or two. Give y'all the recipe on that.
Is that your pollen feeder?
That's a pliable swarm lure that's supposed to be long lasting, according to folks in what they call them, the bee something forum and another beekeeping forum. Several people was talking about making them things and using them as a long lasting swarm lure. So
I think I found the key when we were talking about that, and I started researching it, Tim. I think I found the key to that with the different things you talk about using,
yeah.
the oils and stuff.
hmm
The key is what we were talking about. Didn't realize it. Is that if you have something that has a pheromone footpath smell to it, where it cleans walk,
Okay.
like brood comb or slum gum,
Oh, all right.
would have the QMP footprint of a queen. It has to be light. It can't be heavy. That's why it's a footprint smell. No,
By heating it up, will it dilute or erase that footprint, or will that footprint stay in there?
I'm not sure. I have not found anything saying one way or the other on that.
Okay.
But I think that's a trigger because it locks something in place. It locks the bees in place. Having the QMP footprint.
All right. Because I'll give a portion of it away until we do the actual video. But I do it
And
every
then
time.
you tell the whole
I'm
story.
not going to tell it all until we do it, I promise. But
You drive through the
Uh,
place
we had just
That's why
used
they
wax.
go into it.
there.
Yeah, we just used wax cappings. We didn't use brood wax. I had just grabbed, actually I had a little bit of wax capping left we had done. We cleaned out last year, and something to throw together real quick. I was trying to do the mixture, but the main thing was to see if it was as pliable as what they said. And going by the recipe, it is very much pliable. Like we was talking earlier, it stays, it doesn't clump up, anything like that. And I had rubbed it on 2 lids out there. And after it got done, I did one way, then done another one another way. And with both of them, you could smell, no problem, the residue, if you will, from it. So it very much puts off the aroma and leaves it there, for sure. It's
When
just,
you gonna be so cryptic about it?
it's that
It
brain
don't even
teaser for
make
everybody
sense.
until we put it out there. But we're gonna make a video of it pretty soon, and y'all, it's something that you can put together, no problem, as long as you got the resources to do so. Super simple to make if it's something you're wanting to do. But
Stop talking about it until you're
Yeah.
actually gonna tell the whole
Let me
thing.
hush.
Wow.
so here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did some research and come across a few. That's why I come up with that. I thought I'd say something to you about it.
Call me.
Yeah. I didn't want to
Yeah.
go too deep in it.
Yep. Call me, and I'm off of it now. Then
Okay.
we'll put it together.
You're not off.
Well, on that note, folks, I think I'm gonna wrap it up for the evening. So we say be good, behave, and beehive. And God bless you and your bees.
You too. Man.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
He's still live. Ed, you're still live. You're still live.